Chapter 58. There's a crack. Tian was overjoyed when he heard this. He quickly looked at Bai Susu and asked Susu, "Where is the crack? Can we pass through it and reach the valley?" He couldn't help but be concerned. This crack was the only key to entering the valley. If they could pass through it and reach the valley, then the valley would be able to maintain its concealment. Even if they continued to live in the valley and didn't go out, they wouldn't startle the other local creatures in the southern barbaric mountain range. Then, they could quietly accumulate power in the valley and wait until the time came for them to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. My king, my subordinates only found a crack. They didn't go to the deepest part of the valley before they came back to report. I'm guessing that this must be the passage that leads to the valley. Bai Susu blinked and said with certainty. Of course, there was still a trace of nervousness in her voice. After all, she wasn't completely sure. Perhaps this was just a relatively deep karst cave. That was why no one could immediately come to a conclusion without confirmation. Tian pondered for a moment and immediately raised his eyes. His gaze was unusually resolute as he said, "We can't continue to wait here. The longer we stay here, the greater the chance of accidents and danger. Susu, you and I will go to the crack and see if it's the passage that leads to the valley. Chihua and the other 4 will be on guard nearby. Wait for us to come back." "Yes, my king." At this moment, Sakra didn't hesitate and didn't waste any more time. He let Bai Susu lead the way in front and rushed towards the place where the slit appeared. At this moment, underground, the large rat that had been following them was now squeaking in front of the Rat King, reporting the scene that it had seen. "Good, you're saying that they've already stopped at the foot of the mountain that doesn't grow anything. It seems that that's their destination. Immediately inform the people to gather the army and prepare to set off at any time. This time, you must capture that black tiger for me. After eating its meat, I can become even stronger. At that time, our rat kingdom will also become even stronger. Sooner or later, the entire mountain range will belong to our rat clan." The Rat King's whiskers trembled incessantly. His eyes shone brightly, filled with lust. When the big rat heard this, it was a little hesitant. It said, "Your Majesty, but I saw a large number of snakes in that group. There were also many eagles flying in the sky." It was no wonder that after seeing the snake and eagle in the migration team, he had been hiding in the cave and did not dare to come out. After all, these 2 things were the nemesis of rodent. "Don't be afraid. Eagles and snakes are nothing. When we depart, this king will open the altar and let all my people shine with the divine light for a while. At that time, there is no need to be afraid of small snakes and eagles. They used to be our nemesis, but later, we will be their nemesis. We will drink their blood and eat their flesh." The Rat King was quite confident. Its intelligence was much stronger than that of ordinary spirit beasts. It directly dug countless tunnels underground, allowing the rat race to reproduce countless descendants, and built an underground kingdom that belonged to the rat race. This was definitely not something that an ordinary rat king could think of or do. Now, even if it was facing its natural nemesis, it was not afraid at all. Instead, it was full of confidence. It was as if it had a magic treasure to deal with it. This was very strange. When the big rat heard that it could bathe in the divine light, its 2 small eyes were so bright that they could be used as night pearls. It kowtowed to the Rat King happily. "Your Majesty, to be able to bathe in the divine light, those small snakes will definitely not be a match for our rat race army. At that time, we will definitely help you kill the black tiger. We will make your Majesty stronger." At this time, it no longer had the timidity from before. It almost jumped up. "Go and prepare." Yes. The rat race in the underground world was moving silently. "Susu, this is the narrow crack you mentioned. It is indeed very hidden." At this moment, Sakra was standing in front of a remote corner at the foot of the mountain. This place was indeed very remote because there were weeds everywhere on the mountain wall. Such weeds were everywhere in the surroundings. They were exactly the same and there was no difference at all. Under such dense weeds, it was indeed quite difficult to find this place. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The most rare thing was that this was not a real narrow crack. In front of it was a huge rock that sealed it, and there was only a small hole that was the size of a dog's hole. This made it even harder for people to find. Even if they saw it, they would only think that it was a snake hole or something. They would definitely not find out that it was a tunnel. Your Majesty, my tribesmen crawled in through this small hole, and they realized that there's a huge crack behind the stone wall that they can pass through. Baisusu didn't feel discouraged by the small hole in front of her. She explained the reason. Yes. Sakura used his demon sense to pass through the stone wall and realized that the back was indeed the same as what she said. At the back, there was indeed a rather wide passageway. He said, "This king will break the stone wall and we will go in to explore." After saying that, he reached out his tiger claw and slapped the stone wall in front of him. Bang! The stone wall itself was hollow and not very thick. After suffering this heavy blow that contained demonic power, the stone wall broke open on the spot. Looking inside, one could see that it was pitch black inside, without much light. However, the air was quite circulating. The spiritual energy contained in the air here was a level higher than that of the outside. Although there wasn't much light in the cave, it couldn't block Sakura's line of sight. After a slight glance, he discovered that this cave should be a naturally formed karst cave. Looking at the circulation of air, it shouldn't be sealed. Moreover, there was wind blowing from the other side. It seemed that the other side must lead to the outside. "Come, let's go in and take a look." Indra took the lead. He exerted strength in his legs and stomped on the ground, leaping into the cave with his huge tiger body. Whoosh! Baisusu's slender snake body also darted in and followed behind him. After entering the cave, Di-Shirtian did not let down his guard. His eyes were like torches as he scanned every corner of the cave, afraid that he would miss something. Pata! Suddenly, perhaps because the sound of Di-Shirtian and the others walking on the ground had alerted them, a snow-white figure suddenly darted out from a corner in front of them. "Susu, look! There's a rabbit running ahead. Let's follow it." Seeing the rabbit, Di-Shirtian was not surprised. Instead, he was delighted. If there was life here, it meant that this cave was not a dead end. There must be a way out on the other side. When a rabbit was frightened, it would run in the direction it thought to be safe. If they followed it, they would be able to find another way out. With Di-Shirtian and the others' speed, it would not be difficult for them to catch the rabbit in front of them. However, in order to find a way out, they purposely followed behind it. After walking for a while, they realized that there was not only one straight path in this cave. Instead, there were many forks in the path ahead. If they went in the wrong direction, it would be very troublesome. Now that the rabbit was leading the way, they could easily walk on the most correct path. Baisusu understood this as well, so she followed behind them excitedly. Soon, the two of them passed through several forks in the path. Suddenly, the rabbit's silhouette disappeared, and a light appeared in front of them. "We're at the entrance of the cave?" Di-Shirtian was overjoyed. He quickly rushed over, and sure enough, there was an exit on the other side. Standing in front of the cave, he was overjoyed by the sight before him. "We're here, we've found it. This must be the valley that Inkong was talking about. It's indeed the best place to live." In front of him, the first thing that came into his eyes was a very large grassland. The ground was green and shady, and it was abnormally plump and attractive. On top of it, there were herbivores in groups of 2s and 3s, eating the tender grass happily. There was a small forest by the side. There were many fruit trees. Fruits were hanging on the branches, and they were extremely alluring. In the distance, in the east, there was a waterfall. The clear water fell on the rocks, producing crisp sounds. The thick water vapor nourished the life here. With just a rough look, one could tell that this place could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people, and it was more than enough for them to live a normal life here. There were mountains and rivers, and it was a small world in another world. Good, good, good. The valley is vast and surrounded by mountains on all sides. There are mountains and rivers. Those who can come in, unless they come from the sky, can only come from the passage behind us. The concealment is high enough. This place is simply the best residence prepared for us. Moreover, the spiritual chi in the air here is even denser than outside. This is great, this is really great. The more Sakra looked, the more satisfied he was with the valley in front of him. To be able to find such a place, it could be said that it completely exceeded his expectations. He couldn't be more satisfied. Moreover, they were surrounded by mountains and precipitous cliffs. The only way they could enter was the cave behind them. After entering, they would guard the cave and seal it with rocks from the outside. They would try their best to keep it hidden. That way, they wouldn't be in too much danger for the time being. Congratulations, Your Majesty, for finding such a wonderful place. This valley will become Your Majesty's base in the future. Why don't you give it a name? Susu curled up in a circle as she looked at the scenery before her. This was going to be the place where they would live from now on. Susu, you're right. This valley will belong to us in the future. We just need to give it a name. From now on, we will build our foundation here. We will strengthen our strength. Sooner or later, I will gather a force that can compete with the immortal cultivation sect. P.S. Wan Yao, I have put my heart into writing this. Every chapter has been carefully planned out so that there won't be any obvious loopholes. Eagles and snakes are the natural enemies of rats. I am not so stupid as to arrange for normal rats to fight against each other's natural enemies despite knowing that they are each other's natural enemies. Writing this way is just to slowly lead to the later chapters. If I didn't even know about this, I wouldn't need anyone to scold me. I would find a way to kill myself with tofu. Naturally, I have my reasons for doing this. As you read on, you will understand. Chapter 59. Looking at the valley and thinking about the future, an unparalleled power rose in his heart. He raised his head and looked at the sky. His gaze was incomparably serious as he said, I hope that in the future, there will be thousands of demons under my command who can truly control their own destinies and who can challenge the immortal cultivators directly. Why don't we call this valley the Myriad Demon Valley? Myriad Demon, Myriad Demon. A true demon had to be a powerhouse who had condensed an inner core. Such a powerhouse could already transform into a human form, and their strength was not inferior to that of a core formation cultivator. Moreover, if the demon's physical body and some of their innate abilities were included, they would be even stronger than cultivators of the same level. It would be quite easy for a demon to fight against 2 or 3 cultivators. If there really were thousands of demons gathered here, then the scene and the force would be enough to challenge the cultivators. Their strength would not be inferior to that of the strongest immortal cultivation sect. Now, this was just a distant thought. However, Sakra firmly believed that in the future, as long as he continued to walk unswervingly, there would be a day sooner or later. At that time, no matter how powerful the force that captured White Tiger Mother was, he would lead thousands of demons and directly destroy them with his strength. He must avenge this great hatred. Myriad Demon Valley, this name is so domineering. Susu believes that my king will make it come true. Hearing this, Susu's eyes lit up again. When she looked at Di Shirtian, there was a trace of undetectable infatuation in her eyes. Yes. Di Shirtian looked at the valley again, then turned around and walked back. He said, All right, Susu, we have been out for a long time. Now that we have found the passage, let's go back and inform Chihua, Baiwe, and the others to bring their tribes and move in immediately. After settling down, I will officially teach you how to cultivate demons. As he spoke, he walked back. Thank you, my king. When Susu heard that he was going to teach them how to cultivate demons, her whole body trembled with excitement. Ever since they had seen the king's strength, all of them who followed him had been looking forward to the day when they would have the same opportunity. Now that they heard about it, how could they not be excited? She thought to herself, "King, when Susu has enough power, I will be able to help you." Although none of them had said anything about it, they all had a deep thirst for power. Every time there was danger, Tian had to deal with it all by himself. All they could do was hide off to the side and watch as their king fought to the death. It wasn't a very pleasant feeling. After all, they were all sentient and intelligent. Since they had submitted to Tian, how could they let their king protect them blindly? They had to be strong enough to share the burden of their king's dangers. Although he had followed the correct path, because he was chasing the rabbit, he had carefully memorized the path before he entered. As long as he walked through it once, there was no possibility of going wrong again. Now that he was returning, Tian seemed to have walked this path 1,000 times. He shuttled through the paths with ease. It didn't take long for him to return to the place where he had broken through the stone wall. He darted out of the cave and walked to the place where the wolves were gathered. Chihua and the others were patrolling the area carefully, fearing that something unexpected might happen. "King, have you found the passage?" Inkong was the most nervous of them all. After all, he was the one who said that there was a valley, and he was the one who brought them here. If there wasn't a passage, everything they had done would have been in vain. "Everyone, hurry up and get ready. We have found the passage, and I have personally found the valley you spoke of. We can't stay here any longer. Let's pass through the cave and enter the valley immediately." The tribes here were already prepared, so when they heard this, they were all overjoyed. The leaders organized their own groups, and under by Susu's lead, they came to the tunnel and entered the cave. Susu led the snakes in front, Baiyu led the wolves in the middle, and the monkeys in the back. Inkong flew across the sky. Tian didn't enter. Instead, he stood quietly in front of the passage. He wanted to wait for all the tribes to enter before sealing the cave. This way, the location of the valley would be more concealed. He stood at the foot of the mountain. Tian's eyes kept scanning the surroundings. "What is that thing that is following me? It's still following me even now." For the past few days, the faint gaze behind him didn't decrease. Instead, it increased. It was as if there wasn't just one pair of eyes watching him, but several pairs of eyes. But when he looked seriously, he still didn't find anything. This made him very confused. However, he was already very sure that he had really been targeted by some kind of creature on this trip. It had been following behind him like a worm. It was probably trying to find their weakness. Because of this, his state of mind did not relax for even a moment. "Humph, no matter what it is, I'll seal the entrance with a big rock after entering the cave. Then, I'll use my demonic energy to fuse the rock with the surrounding walls. Let's see what ability you have to follow me." They weren't afraid of enemies that appeared in the open, but they were afraid of enemies that hid in the dark. They couldn't find any traces of such enemies, and they didn't know when they would attack. It was a constant torment to one's mind, and it was the most exhausting. After all, one couldn't guard against it forever. Squeak, squeak. The big rat that had been monitoring underground saw Tian and his group pass through the cave. Its eyes were filled with shock, and it quickly ran back underground. In the field where the Rat King lived, the big rat panted and told him what it saw. They passed through the cave and entered the mountain. The Rat King's cold light flickered. He said, "Rat King, continue to lead the rat soldiers to monitor the nearby situation and see if you can dig a path. Gather the rat soldiers immediately and prepare to come to the altar to bathe in the divine light." After giving the order, the Rat King jumped down from the throne, walked to a corner behind him, and removed a stone slab. Then, a large hole appeared. When the Rat King saw it, he immediately jumped in. His huge body disappeared in the blink of an eye. It didn't take long for him to arrive at a hollow underground cave that was slightly smaller than the one he lived in. The ground here was flat, and in the middle, there was an octagonal altar that was 3 meters tall. This altar was made of strange ores. The Rat King came to the front of the altar and lay down in front of it. He raised his head and looked at the item at the top of the altar with reverence. It was a pearl that was the size of a pigeon's egg. The pearl was a kind of earthy yellow, and there was a faint light flowing on its surface. It was like water flowing on the surface, and it looked very mysterious. Moreover, the pearl was constantly emitting rays of yellow light that filled the surroundings of the altar. Bathed in the divine light, the Rat King took a few deep breaths in enjoyment. Suddenly, his fur quickly turned earthy yellow, and his eyes were filled with reverence and comfort. It was as if he had received a great benefit. Speaking of this bead, it was rather mysterious. The Rat King had only found it by chance. The Rat King looked at the pearl and thought about the past. He was still an ordinary rat in the southern barbaric mountain range, and he was far from the current Rat King. At that time, he was drilling underground all day looking for food. While he was digging underground, he suddenly dug to the top of this karst cave and opened up a passage. He fell in immediately. This fall was a few meters long. Under normal circumstances, he would have fallen to his death on the spot. He might have even been smashed into meat paste. However, just as he fell, a yellow pearl in this karst cave suddenly emitted a yellow light and shone on him. He fell, but nothing happened at all. It was very strange. What was more amazing was that after being shone on by the divine light, he began to gradually develop spirituality. Moreover, as time passed, his intelligence became much stronger than other spiritual spirit beasts. This was why he was smarter than other spirit beasts. Since then, every time he bathed in the divine light, he would feel that his power would increase a little. This made him even more certain that the yellow pearl was a treasure. After unifying all the rat tribes underground and becoming the Rat King, he built an altar here and placed the pearl on the altar. Every day, he would come in to bathe in the divine light for an hour. Until today, even if he did not know how to cultivate, he still managed to increase his strength to the peak of the demon in just a dozen years. Unfortunately, the divine light could increase his strength, but it seemed to be unable to help him become a demon beast. He could only find a spirit beast and eat it to have a chance of advancing. This was the reason why he valued Deshirtion so much. After eating the black tiger, I can also become a demon beast. The Rat King's eyes flashed with lust. Bang! After all the tribes had entered the cave, Deshirtion found a large stone at the side. He used his demon power to condense a few tiger claws and grabbed the stone to the entrance of the cave. Then, he used his demon power to melt the stone and completely fuse it with the surrounding stone walls. This completely sealed the entrance of the cave. Well, in this way, it will be difficult for people to find this cave. The moment the cave was sealed, Deshirtion finally realized that the gaze that had been following behind him had finally disappeared completely. This made him feel relieved. However, he was not completely optimistic. He faintly guessed that things were not as simple as they seemed on the surface. There must be something else going on. However, he did not think too much about it now. He turned around and quickly shuttled through the cave, rushing to the Myriad Demon Valley. Although he had seen the valley, he did not explore it specifically. He still had to look around carefully. Chapter 60. Shuttling through the forked paths, he was able to find the right path in an instant even if he was faced with several forked paths. With his speed, he arrived at the entrance of the valley in no time. Standing in front of the cave, he looked forward. On the grassland in front of him, the wolf pack, snake pack, monkey pack, and other tribesmen were all playing happily. Looking at the scenery around them, they were very happy. They all knew that this was where they would live in the future. Thinking about it, after almost a month, they finally arrived here. How could they not be happy? King! Seeing Deshirtion appear in front of the cave, Yuan Tian bared his teeth and jumped in front of him. His monkey paws were holding a few bright red round fruits, his eyes filled with joy. "King, I have good news to report to you." As he spoke, he raised his paws and spread out the items in his paws, presenting them in front of Di Tian. "Yuan Tian, what good news? Could it be these fruits in your hands?" Seeing his excited expression, Di Tian guessed that the reason for his excitement might be the fruits in his hand. As he asked, he couldn't help but use his demon awareness to investigate the fruit. After this investigation, a deep shock immediately appeared in his eyes. From this mysterious fruit, he could actually feel an incomparably dense spiritual qi emanating from it. This spiritual qi was quite massive. Yuan Tian didn't notice this, he just scratched his head in joy. "King, this is it. These are the scarlet fruits that I told you about before. I just found them in the valley. These scarlet fruits are even better than the ones I saw before. If used to brew monkey wine, it will definitely increase the efficacy of the spiritual wine." It turned out that as soon as Yuan Tian entered the valley, some monkeys jumped around and wandered around. They discovered that not only were there all kinds of fruits in the valley, they would not lack food. They even found a few vermilion fruit trees beside the waterfall in the east, which were full of vermilion fruits. The scarlet fruits on these trees contained even more spiritual energy than the ones they saw before. In the past, the scarlet fruits they used to brew wine in the Tiger Hill Mountains were only a few years old. Fruits that were more than 10 years old were at most 100 years old. Now, the fruits here were definitely more than 1,000 years old. This was a 1,000-year-old scarlet fruit. Moreover, in the valley they easily found a lot of ginseng, ganoderma, and the like. Wine ingredients that were difficult to find outside could be easily found here. Moreover, the medicinal energy they contained was several times, or even dozens of times greater than what they found before. If he were to pick other fruits and use the secret wine-making recipe to brew the spirit wine, the effect of the spirit wine would be even more powerful. What? This is the scarlet fruit. Although he had vaguely guessed something, but when it was confirmed, Sakra's mind couldn't help but fluctuate intensely. It was no wonder, the effect of the monkey wine on cultivation was too great. It could help people save a lot of time. The power contained in the brewed spirit wine was not only pure, but also gentle. It was most suitable for cultivators to absorb. Although he had brought quite a bit of monkey wine from the Monkey Valley, Baiwe and the others were about to cultivate as well. It was necessary to use the monkey wine to supplement their cultivation. No matter how much he had, it wouldn't last long. Along the way, when Di Tian decided to let Baiwe and the others officially start cultivating, he was also thinking about how to increase their cultivation speed. If he were to cultivate step by step, he did not know how long it would take for him to gather a considerable amount of power. Just as he was having a headache over this, Yuan Tian had brought him good news. When he heard this, his heart couldn't help but tremble. His 2 tiger eyes shot out a bright light like a torch. The purple king mark on his forehead was constantly pulsating. A strong pressure instantly fell on Yuan Tian. "King, with the scarlet fruit, I can start brewing monkey wine again after gathering other fruit ingredient." Yuan Tian felt the pressure around him, but the joy in his eyes didn't diminish. Instead, he knelt down respectfully and said to Di Tian, "Alright, Yuan Tian, the monkey wine can speed up your cultivation speed and increase your strength. This time, Benwang will give you a mission." Sakra secretly suppressed the excitement in his heart at the bottom of his heart. He looked at Yuan Tian with a burning gaze. "King, please give me your orders." Yuan Tian's eyes also shot out a burning light. "I want you to wait until all of us have settled down, then immediately bring your monkey grandsons and start brewing monkey wine. No matter what materials you need, this king can get people to help you find them. Only an endless supply of monkey wine can speed up everyone's cultivation speed," Sakra said solemnly. "King, Yuan Tian will definitely complete the task." When Yuan Tian heard this, he agreed without hesitation, but it takes a long time to brew monkey wine. It takes at least 3 months to brew monkey wine. Wine is different from ordinary things. It needs a fermentation process. It needs to fuse all kinds of fruits, strange flowers and herbs, and all kinds of spirit essence together. After precipitation, it can finally brew monkey wine. Such a magical spirit wine can't be brewed in a blink of an eye. Tirtian took a deep breath. Hearing this, his excited mood gradually calmed down. He knew that this may be one of the factors that limited the production of monkey wine. He was afraid that it was impossible to have an endless supply of spirit wine. Even so, you can't give up. Later, you take your people and prepare to brew. I will let Kong and the others cooperate with you. Yes, King. After talking with Yuan Tian for a while, he also walked down. After entering the valley, he immediately began to let Qihua and the other subordinates lead their respective tribes to find a suitable place to live and settle down. Moreover, Yi Feng had specially dug out a huge cave on the southern mountain wall for Yuan Tian to brew wine with his demonic energy. In front of the cave there was a fruit forest. This way, it was convenient for them to pick fruits and suitable for the survival of the monkeys. Bai Susu, on the other hand, took the snakes and found a pool near the waterfall. She settled the snakes in the pool. Of course, there were also some that scattered into the forest. When they entered the valley, they were no longer required to completely gather together. They could move freely in the valley. The wolves lived on the grassland. The eagles were even simpler. They found caves in the surrounding steep mountains and settled down as nests. The apes planted the saplings of the fruit trees in the valley. Because they were placed in the storage bag, there was not much difference between when they were taken out and when they were placed in the storage bag. After planting them, most of them could survive. Under the nourishment of the spiritual energy in the valley, they believed that they would soon grow tall and big. The Myriad Demon Valley was not small. Even if Tirtian and the others brought in more than 100,000 creatures, they could still only occupy a small part of the valley. Most of the area was still unknown. Since he had decided to live here, Tirtian had to grasp everything in the valley. After settling down a little, he asked the tribes to send their people to explore every corner of the valley. He wanted to be able to find out everything in the valley in the shortest time possible. Unknowingly, it was already night. The valley was gradually shrouded by night. In a huge cave that Tirtian personally opened up on the mountain wall next to the waterfall in the east, Qihua, Baiwe, Kong, Yuan Tian, and Bai Susu, the 5 kings with intelligence, were respectfully surrounding Tirtian in a circle. There was a look of desire in their eyes when they looked at him. Qihua, although you are gifted with the ability to spit out flames, that is only your innate ability. You have not truly stepped onto the path of demonic cultivation. You just absorb the spiritual energy in the surroundings, the essence of the sun and the moon, and the power contained in the blood to strengthen your own strength. You don't know how to use the power hidden in your body at all. Even if you break through to become a demon, you are just a beast that only knows how to fight by instinct. You can't be regarded as a demon. Looking at the 5 subordinates gathered around him, the first thing Tirtian said was that they were not qualified to be called demons and did not know how to use the power in their bodies. Indeed, in this world, there were many spirit beasts who ignorantly absorbed the essence of the sun and the moon to increase their strength and strengthen their bodies. Perhaps in the end, they could even become demon beasts by chance. However, their fighting style was not much different from that of ordinary animals. Even if they had great power, they could not use it and did not know how to use it. This was because their intelligence was limited and they could not think about it. Moreover, there was no one to guide them. Therefore, although they had great power and great potential, they were still caught or killed by cultivators. It was like catching wild beasts. The key was how to use the power. Your Majesty, please ask us how to become stronger. Among them, Qihua's desire for power was the strongest. He never doubted Tirtian's words. He immediately knelt on the ground and begged, "Your Majesty, please grant us power." In Kong and the others followed suit. They quickly knelt on the ground before Di Shirtian. Their expressions were full of respect and desire. Di Shirtian nodded and said, "Get up, all of you. I called you here this time to teach you how to cultivate demons. I will teach you how to condense the power in your body and turn it into demon power, a power that can really be used." He cultivated the Tiger Roar technique, which was the most suitable demon cultivation technique for him, because the technique completely pointed out every step of the Tiger clan's cultivation. It was very clear which meridian to open first and which meridian to open next. However, it might not be suitable for other clans. However, different paths lead to the same goal. The cultivation at the beginning was very simple. It only needed to open the meridian. To teach Chihua and the others how to cultivate, he only needed to help them find the right meridian and teach them how to circulate demon power in the meridian. After that, they would slowly open up all the meridians in their bodies. Naturally, they would become a peak spirit monster. Damn, it actually dropped from the weekly classification list. Those with votes, please help to push it up. Chapter 61. Teaching the 5 spiritual subordinates around him to cultivate demons was part of his plan. Many things needed the people around him to be strong together, so that they could share the burden. Of course, what he explained would only be the cultivation method before they became demonic beasts. As for how to open up the demon mansion, this would have to wait until later to slowly prove their loyalty. Only then could he tell them the following cultivation method. Otherwise, if the cultivation method of demon cultivation was leaked, it would cause a huge loss. Perhaps it would provoke a powerful enemy. After a brief explanation of the definition of demon cultivation, Di Shirtian first helped Chi Hua find the meridians in his body. Since they were similar in shape, it was natural for them to cultivate. He first poured his demonic power into Chi Hua's body, driving the huge power hidden in his body. The scattered demonic power was guided to the meridians from head to tail. Chi Hua was a powerful spirit beast whose strength had reached the peak of demonic beasts. Even in the face of a cultivator, he could resist for a period of time. The blood food he usually ate, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that he unintentionally absorbed, as well as the essence of the sun and moon, had accumulated to a considerable extent. Now, under Di Shirtian's slight guidance, the power in his body was like a bird that had found its nest. It was like a flood that had been released. It kept gathering in his meridians. In the blink of an eye, a red gas was emitted from Chihua's body, covering him in a red mist. This red mist was the demonic aura that he emitted. With a bit of guidance, Chihua entered a state of cultivation where the conditions were right. He constantly gathered the hidden power in his body quickly. It formed waves of demonic power, which ran in his meridians and tried to break through the barriers between the meridians. After helping Chihua guide, Di Shirtian did not stop to help Baiyue and the others start to gather their demonic power. He also found their meridians and told them when and how to cultivate and when they could break through the barriers. How to operate the cultivation method to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, as well as the essence of the sun and moon. These were all crude and easy to understand. With their intelligence, it was not a problem for them to understand these things. However, Baisusu's meridian was rather unique. It was indeed a single meridian. However, when it came to unlocking her meridian, she had to do it repeatedly. Every time, she would unlock a third of her meridian, and it would be split into 3 batches. When all of them were unlocked, she would be at the peak of her spiritual power. Whew! After Bai Yu and the others understood how to cultivate, Di Shirtian returned to his original position. He exhaled deeply and looked at his subordinates who were surrounded by clouds of Yao Qi. After pondering for a while, he said, Chihua himself is already an expert among demons. He just didn't know how to cultivate as a demon before. Now that I've given him the cultivation method, he'll be able to release all the energy he's accumulated in his body. It won't be long before he'll be able to open up all the meridians in his body. At that time, combined with his unique fire pillar, his strength will be the strongest under me. Bai Yu and the others are a little lacking. When they were with me, they had only just gained intelligence. This time, they might not even be able to unlock the first meridian. Yuan Tian drank a lot of monkey wine, and the energy from the spiritual wine is accumulated in his body. This time, he should be able to unlock the first meridian. As for the second meridian, he might still be a little lacking. At this point, the strength of his subordinates was clear. Qihua was the strongest, and Yuan Tian would probably be second. After that, it would be Ying Kong and Bai Susu. Bai Yu was the weakest. After thinking for a while, he quickly threw these thoughts to the back of his mind. He took out a spirit-gathering pill from his storage bag, poured out a pill, and ate it. Then, he began to circulate the tiger roar technique to absorb the energy within the pill. Qihua was about to reach the peak of his spiritual power. He could not stay in the realm of a demon any longer. He had to increase his speed and truly fill up all the demonic energy in his meridians. When he reached the peak, he would attempt to unlock the demon manor. Zhi. At this moment, in the underground, countless huge rats were gathered in the Rat King's spacious cave. They were lining up and rushing towards the mysterious underground karst cave with the altar. Every rat's eyes were shining as if they were on a pilgrimage. In front of the sacrificial altar, countless rats were sprawled on the ground, bathing in the yellow light. After a while, the rats that had been bathed in the yellow light mysteriously turned an earthy yellow. Then, they followed another passage and left the sacrificial altar. Each and every one of them was in high spirits, valiant and spirited. It was as if they had received great power. After one group left, another group immediately came in. Bathing in the divine light, their bodies turned yellow, and then they left. This strange scene kept repeating in front of the sacrificial altar. The Rat King saw this and nodded in satisfaction. When all the rat soldiers have bathed in the divine light and their bodies are protected by divine power, we will go find that black tiger. No matter how strong the black tiger is, it will not be able to resist this king's huge rat army. As he spoke, he paused and looked at Rat Boss beside him. Rat Boss, you said that the black tiger and a large group of beasts have all disappeared into the mountain, and you can't find the entrance? Reporting to the king, this subordinate has led the clansmen to search many places, but we can't find any gaps. Rat Boss was also very puzzled. He clearly saw a passage in the mountain wall, but it had disappeared. This made him very puzzled. Don't worry. In any case, they disappeared into that mountain. Digging holes is the innate talent of our rat clan. If we can't find a hole, this king will lead the little ones to dig a big hole in the mountain. When has the prey that this king has set his eyes on ever escaped? The Rat King's whiskers kept trembling. The rat's eyes shone brightly. Under the Rat King's surveillance, the rat soldiers moved very quickly. Moreover, there was no chaos as they entered and exited. It was as if they were really an army. Bathing in the divine light, large groups of rats turned earthy yellow. This scene of being bathed in the divine light lasted for more than 2 hours. Just now, all the rats who were about to set off were bathed in the divine light. Squeak, squeak. Under the Rat King's command, countless huge rats quickly followed the underground passage and ran in front of the barren mountain where Di Shirtian and the others had stopped. After being bathed in the divine light, these rats all ran forward quickly as if they had been injected with chicken blood and had eaten a big tonic pill. There was no sign on the surface, but there was a huge rat tide underground. If one were to look carefully, there were no less than 1 million rats moving out this time. This situation was like a rat disaster in his previous life. The crazy rat tide was incomparably terrifying. It was as if they wanted to bite everything in front of them into pieces in an instant. One tunnel after another appeared under their sharp claws. They only charged in one direction unwaveringly. In front of the steep barren mountain, where Chertion and the others had stopped before, there were only stones and not a single plant or tree. The surroundings were silent, as if no life existed here. Crash! In this quiet environment, strange sounds suddenly rang out. Under the cover of the night, holes of various sizes suddenly appeared in the ground. Then, huge rats quickly scurried out of the ground. Hua! In a huge hole, the Rat King suddenly scurried out. He stood on the ground and looked around. The eyeballs in his eyes were rolling. He shouted to Big Rat, who had followed him out, "Big Rat, where did Black Tiger and the others disappear to?" "It's here." Rat jolted his buttocks as he rushed to the entrance of the cave that Sakura had sealed with a stone when he left and shouted, "My king, they disappeared here." There was a trace of excitement in his eyes. "Little ones, rush over and dig a big hole in this mountain for me. Under the claws of our rat tribe, no mountain can stop our footstep." The Rat King did not hesitate and ordered more and more rat soldiers behind him. In an instant, they saw that the overwhelming number of rats rushed to the front of the mountain wall, waved their claws, and began to dig desperately on the hard rock. Their claws rubbed against the rock, making ear-piercing sounds. In the darkness, it was very strange. Little by little, the rat soldiers dug out the rock foam under their claws. In the myriad demon valley, Chertion's body was covered by pitch-black demon aura, and a thick demon fog rolled around him from time to time. Suddenly, the demon fog rolled violently, and in the blink of an eye, it converged back into his body. He slowly opened his eyes, and there was a trace of surprise in his tiger-like eyes. I suddenly felt a sense of unease in my heart. I've had this feeling before, but it's never been as strong as it is today. Is there something happening that has to do with me? Or is there danger approaching? Sakura had just completely refined the medicinal efficacy of the spirit-gathering pill, increasing his own demonic power a little. Just as he was about to stabilize this increase in demonic power, he didn't know why, but his heart suddenly felt restless, unable to calm down. Only then did he end his cultivation, secretly puzzled in his heart. Today is the first day I live in the Myriad Demon Valley. There are some places in the valley that I have not explored. Is there a powerful demon monster in the valley that wants to attack me? If there was any danger, this was the only one he could think of. However, just as he was thinking, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. He thought to himself, "That's right, I've been feeling that there's something following behind me along the way. Could it be that my feeling this time has something to do with this?" As he thought of this idea took root in his heart. "Chihua, Inkong, you all stop cultivating for the time being." Thinking of this, Chertion quickly woke up his 5 subordinates, who were familiarizing themselves with the new demon power in their bodies. "I don't know why today, but my head is dizzy and I can't concentrate. I'm even late. Sorry." Chapter 62. Swoosh! Chertion's voice was transmitted directly into their minds through his demon awareness. Immediately, they saw the 5 balls of demon fog in front of them tumble violently for a moment before quickly retracting back into their bodies. When the demon fog dissipated, Chihua and the others appeared. Among them, Chihua had obviously gained a lot. The moment he opened his eyes, a crimson light flashed across them. Extraordinary talent indeed. He actually broke through the 2nd meridian and entered the 2nd tier. It seems that it won't be long before Chihua can break through the bottleneck and open up all the meridians in his body. Chertion's eyes shone brightly. He sensed that Chihua had already opened up 2 meridians in his body, which were the main meridians from head to tail, and the meridians in his 2 front legs. Once he opened up the 2 back legs, he would be able to circulate his demon powers throughout his body. The vigorous demon powers carried a blazing aura, as if they were of the fire attribute. It could be said that they were compatible with his body constitution. Shirtian was not too surprised that Chihua could make such progress. After all, he had accumulated a lot of demon powers. Now, he was just releasing the demon powers that he had accumulated in his body. Once he reached the third tier, his cultivation speed would slow down. King, I can feel the demon powers. Chihua looked at Shirtian with gratitude and respect. He could feel that his strength had more than doubled. At this moment, his loyalty to Shirtian was unshakable. That's right, Your Majesty. I've already broken through the first bottleneck and opened my first meridian. I can feel that I've grown much stronger, and I'm filled with boundless strength, Bai Susu said respectfully. They could control the demon powers in their bodies. The feeling of being in control of power was incomparably wonderful. There was a powerful sense of pleasure. The other leaders also began to talk, secretly rejoicing. They looked at Shirtian in the same way as Chihua. They had already been convinced by Shirtian's strength, and now that he could teach them the way to become stronger without any precautions, it was only natural that they would submit to him. You're all spirit beasts that have developed spirituality on your own, and your aptitudes are naturally higher than other beasts. Also, I've taught you the correct demon cultivation method. As long as you persevere and practice it every day, you'll be able to grow stronger. This is just the beginning. When he sensed Chihua and the others' sincerity, Shirtian knew that the 5 leaders had finally submitted to him completely. From now on, the possibility of betrayal was close to zero. Animals were different from humans. Once they submitted sincerely, they would submit for life. It was rare for them to rebel. In some ways, animals were more precious than humans. We'll talk about this later. Hurry up and check on your respective tribes, especially at the entrance of the cave where we came in. Send your strongest men to guard the entrance. I have a feeling that we'll be in danger tonight. Shirtian didn't care about anything else for the time being. His gaze was solemn as he spoke of his feelings. He immediately ordered his men to guard the entrance of the cave. He didn't know why, but as time passed, this feeling became stronger and stronger. All of you, be on your guard and patrol the valley. Yes, King. Chihua and the others respectfully acknowledged Shirtian. Under Chihua's lead, they left the cave in a single file. They immediately ordered their people to patrol the valley. As for the entrance of the cave, they arranged for their strongest men to guard it. In an instant, the atmosphere in the valley became tense. Zizi. At the other end of the tunnel, rats rushed to the front of the stone wall one after another. They waved their sharp claws and quickly dug on the stone. Rats were originally experts at digging holes. Now, these rats were all bathed in the divine light. They were extremely excited and had endless power. The stone foam they dug quickly fell down. In the blink of an eye, the originally smooth stone wall had a large concave pit dug. A large pile of stone powder had accumulated underground. Looking at this scene, it wouldn't take long for the stone wall to be dug through. Behind the stone wall was the tunnel. Once it was dug through, they could enter. They directly rushed to the myriad demon valley. Dig. Hurry up and dig through this mountain for this king. The first one to dig through will be bathed in the divine light 10 times under the altar as a reward. The Rat King's whiskers were constantly trembling. Standing in the crowd of rats, his huge body made him look particularly different. He squeaked. Squeak. As soon as they heard that they could bathe in the divine light, the eyes of these rats who were digging shone brightly. The speed of their claws became faster. The stone wall was quickly thinning at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bang! In just a moment, with a hollow sound, the stone wall was dug through. The entrance of the cave appeared in front of the rats. Dig, dig quickly, we're about to dig through. When the Rat King saw this, he guessed that Black Tiger and the others must have come from this tunnel. If they followed the tunnel, they would definitely be able to find their traces. Kacha, kacha! With a series of cracking sounds, the size of the hole expanded rapidly. In the blink of an eye, It became the same size as the tunnel before it was sealed. Little ones, rush in and find Black Tiger. The Rat King suddenly stood up from the ground and shouted. Immediately, millions of rats rushed into the tunnel like a tide. All the rats, after being bathed in the divine light, turned khaki-colored. This way, they were like the rushing water of the Yellow River, crazily rushing in. Then, the Rat King rushed in as well. The tunnel was full of forks, but the number of rats was too large. When they saw the forks, they rushed in without hesitation. When they found that there was no path, they returned. They could always find the right path in the shortest time. Along the way, they rushed forward. Voila! Squeak! In front of the tunnel, there were several large tribes guarding in front of it. 10 tall apes stood straight in front of the cave. Hundreds of strong wolves were also squatting in front of the cave. One by one, their eyes were shining, emitting traces of green light as they stared at the entrance of the tunnel. There was also a large number of poisonous snakes coiled around. On the ancient trees next to them, there were vultures standing on the side. It was guaranteed that nothing could escape their eyes. At this moment, strange sounds came from the cave. The sounds were incomparably dense, and a strong sense of danger stimulated these people guarding in front of the cave. Their hair stood on end like needles, and they roared in a low voice as they looked at the entrance of the cave. Howl! Awoo! The vultures and wolves howled on the spot, issuing a warning to the valley. Not good, there really is an accident in front of the tunnel. When Di Shirtion heard this cry, he immediately understood that this was a warning. The cry came from the direction of the tunnel, and there really was an accident there. Hoa! He stood up as fast as he could, and his body soared into the air. In an instant, he rushed out of the cave, leaving a black shadow in the night sky as he passed through countless trees. He rushed to the front of the tunnel. At this moment, Chi Hua and the others also rushed over from other places, leading more than 100,000 people running, causing the valley to resound like thunder. At this time, the scene in front of the tunnel had changed. Countless large rats rushed out of the cave like a tide. Hiss! Seeing the rats, the eyes of the poisonous snakes guarding the entrance of the cave lit up, and they made strange sounds. One by one, they jumped up from the ground and bit at the rat. The vultures on the trees also flew up one after another, showing their sharp eagle claws, swooping down from the sky and grabbing at the rat. The apes kept waving their claws, and the wolves used their mouths to bite and claws to grab. Without any hesitation, they fought with the rats on the spot. Gotcha! However, something strange happened. The rats were too big, and the snakes couldn't swallow them in one bite, so they changed to biting. They wanted to inject the venom in their bodies into the rats' bodies and poison them to death. However, when they bit down, they found that the rat's fur was surprisingly tough. The venomous fangs couldn't bite through their fur with all their strength. On the contrary, the strength from the rats almost broke their teeth. The sharp claws of the vultures clawed at the large rats. Even with the sharpness of their claws, they couldn't tear the rats' bodies apart as easily as usual. They needed to use all of their strength to break through the rats' tough fur. The defense of the rats was amazing. Moreover, the rats were like a tide, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. The apes and wolves in front only had time to launch the first wave of attacks before they were surrounded by countless rats and pounced on their bodies. In the blink of an eye, the living creatures were gnawed until only white bones were left. In just a few breaths, the wolves and apes on the ground were eaten alive. Even the snakes, which were the rats' natural enemies, suffered heavy losses. Otherwise, if the rats still had a trace of fear for snakes, the snakes would have been eaten up by the rats on the spot. The vultures had the advantage of the sky, so there were no casualties for the time being. Terrifying. It was so terrifying that it made people's hair stand on end. Such a terrifying scene could make a normal person go crazy on the spot, and their hair instantly stood on end. Roar! At this moment, an overbearing tiger roar suddenly sounded in the valley. It was as if a thunderbolt had suddenly fallen from the sky, and the tiger's might filled the entire valley like a mountain and a prison. The tiger's roar shook the rats who wanted to continue attacking and made their heads sink. They couldn't help but stop, and fear appeared in their crazy eyes. Although the rats' body defense had become quite strong, they couldn't resist the sound. It was all-pervasive, and the rats' heads were buzzing from the vibration. I suddenly had an inspiration today, and came up with the plot, background, and overall situation of the book in one go. The beginning is just an appetizer and a foreshadowing. The latter part will be more exciting, and my thinking has never been clearer. In a few days, I will give a brief overview of the demon cultivation system of this book. Also, thank you to Drunken Memory for your tip. This book is hiring a deputy moderator to help manage the book reviews. It would be best if you are always online. If you are interested, please leave a comment in the book reviews. There will be another chapter later, and it will be updated a little late. Chapter 63. This roar did not use the sound waves of the tiger's roar. Just the sound alone could overbearingly disperse the will of ordinary creatures. In the valley, the tall ancient trees stretched out countless branches and leaves. Although there was no wind, they rustled loudly as if a strong wind had blown past. The stones on the ground were like marbles, constantly bouncing up and down. The rats that had been bathed in the divine light were not ordinary rats. Although the tiger's roar shook them until they were dizzy, they still did not die. They just lay on the ground in fear. Their bodies kept shaking like a sieve. Squeak! A strange cry soared into the sky after the tiger's roar. The sound was extremely sharp and ear-piercing, and it was unusually unpleasant to hear. It had a strong penetrating power, and it could rise powerfully amidst the earth-shaking tiger's roar. In front of the passage, millions of rat soldiers spread out in the field in front of the passage. A huge brown rat walked out of the passage with its head held high. Its body was even bigger than a wild boar. It swaggered into the group of rats. Its two small eyes stared ahead with a fierce light. When the rats, who had been frightened by the tiger's roar until their legs went soft, saw it come out, they immediately emitted a green light and perked up. It was as if they had found their backbone. Rumble! The ground shook violently. A peerlessly domineering aura that looked down on the world surged over in wave. The domineering aura pressed down on the rats' chests and made them feel suffocated. It was as if they could not even breathe smoothly. The aura that had just risen because of the appearance of the Rat King was suppressed on the spot. In front of the group of rats, a huge black tiger that was 10 feet tall walked over step by step. The purple king pattern on his forehead pulsed like a flame, and the boundless domineering aura of the king of beasts permeated the air. There was an endless coldness in its eyes. Behind it, 5 spirit beasts that were also different from the rest followed behind. They quickly arrived in front of the rats with a large number of subordinates. What a big rat! It seems that this should be the Rat King of the rats. Deschertien's eyes were cold. He glanced around and then fixed his gaze on the Rat King. Rats, to be honest, when he first saw the rats that blotted out the sky and covered the earth, even if he had a strong will, he was still shocked for a moment. Ever since he was born, including when he was a human in his previous life, he had never seen so many rats. The horror of the rat disaster had always existed in the records that they had read. He thought to himself, so it turns out that it was these rats that had been following behind and monitoring me all along. Rats burrow underground, and my demon sense isn't strong enough to penetrate underground. No wonder I was unable to find them even after using all my strength to search. Looks like I really can't relax my vigilance at all times within the southern barbaric mountain range. Even rats could reach such an astonishing number. The one who has been watching me since I entered the mountain range is your subordinate? Deschertien's voice was filled with killing intent. As soon as he thought about how he had been spied on, an unknown flame of anger rose in his heart. Even he could not detect the Rat King's strength. He could only vaguely tell that it was definitely a peak demon. For such a powerful rat king to have sent people to watch him from the very beginning, it was obvious that it harbored ill intentions. Squeak, squeak! The rat king let out two strange cries. It looked at Tion with eyes that were about an inch long and full of lust. It cried out, "Big tiger, I see that you have a lot of meat on your body. It must be very fragrant. You're just right for me to eat." When the rat king saw the king of beasts, not only was it not afraid, it even said that it wanted to eat the other party. It was truly audacious. Even so, he had the ability to do so. The 1,000,000 rat soldiers under him had bathed in the divine light and became tough and strong. When they fought, they were not afraid of death. They advanced dauntlessly one after another. No matter how powerful a spirit beast was, it would be drowned by the rat tide. This kind of force gave him enough confidence. "You want to eat my meat?" The anger in Tion's eyes surged. These words undoubtedly showed that they were indeed the ones who had been following him earlier. Moreover, this time, as soon as they opened their mouths, they wanted to eat his meat. It was difficult for him not to be angry. Tion's personality had a trace of coldness and decisiveness. Even if he had to kill and eat people, he could do it. This was because he knew his current identity very well. The past was always the past, and it did not represent anything. In this life, he was a demon, so he had to act like a demon. If he kept saying that he was a human in his previous life, he could not deliberately let them go because of his identity in his previous life when he was faced with the siege of humans and the pursuit of immortal cultivators. That was just hypocrisy and hypocrisy. If people want to kill me, I'll kill them. If immortal cultivators want to kill me, I'll kill immortal cultivators. If people want to kill me and eat my meat, why can't I eat people? Eagles soar in the sky, fishes soar in the shallow water, and all creatures compete for freedom under the frost sky. Roughly knowing the situation of the demon race, Tion's attitude towards those spiritual beasts with spiritual nature was to subdue them as long as they did not have a deep hatred for him. He had never taken the initiative to kill the other party because he did not want the demon race to kill each other. In this way, no matter who won, the demon race's strength would be damaged. However, if they bullied him, Tion would not be a target to be bullied. Squeak, squeak! The Rat King's eyes shone with a greedy light. "If I eat your meat, I can become a demon beast and become stronger." With that, it roared, "Little ones, kill! Kill all the life in the valley. The more you kill, the more I will bathe them in divine light when I return." At the command, immediately, countless fierce lights shot out from the rat. Their original fear was replaced by lust once again. Strange cries came from their mouths as they madly pounced on the group of beasts in front of them. On the ground, there seemed to be a yellow tide. They charged ferociously. "Howl!" Chihua saw that his eyes turned red on the spot. He rushed forward and shouted, "King, these are small fries. Chihua will help you block them." With that, he stood in front of the rats and breathed out heavily. Sparks came out from his nose as he breathed. 2 red pillars of fire immediately spurted out. They were like 2 fire snakes. The pillars of fire contained a huge amount of power. The red flames kept jumping in the air, and the temperature in the air suddenly increased. The surroundings were red and the sparks fell on the ground. The originally green grass was immediately surrounded by a ball of fire and turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. Even the surface of the stones showed signs of drying up. Under Chihua's control, the 2 pillars of fire from his nose swept towards the rats in front of him. The power of the pillars of fire was truly displayed at this moment. With the demon energy, his innate ability was not only more flexible, but also more powerful. The rats in front of him were just bathed in a mysterious divine light that made their skin and flesh tough. They had a strong defense against ordinary attacks, but now they were facing the pillars of fire. As soon as the flames landed on their bodies, the yellow light on the rats' bodies brightened intensely. However, it only flickered a few times before it quickly disappeared under the flames. Unable to resist, the rats were roasted one by one until their flesh was torn apart and they were burned to death. Awoo! Bai Yu and the others also began to move. Bai Yu's speed was extremely fast, and the attack power of his wolf claws was extremely sharp. Relying on his speed, he flashed quickly in the group of rats. His wolf claws were constantly waving, and in front of his wolf claws, snow-white claw marks flashed. When the claws landed on the rats, they tore them into pieces on the spot. When attacking, they also had a deep understanding of the strong defense of these rats. When the claws landed on them, there was a kind of power that actually repelled them. It was difficult to stab them. Kong led the group of eagles and used the advantage of the air to catch the rats one by one. He used the beaks of the eagles to peck their eyes blind and tear their bodies apart. He even threw them down from the sky onto the rocks. Bai Susu was the most direct when dealing with the rats. She opened her mouth and sucked hard, swallowing hundreds of rats in one gulp. Under the powerful acid in her stomach, the yellow light on the rats' bodies was quickly corroded, fully demonstrating the fact that snakes were the nemesis of rats. Their attacks were powerful, but when faced with a rat horde, one rat wasn't scary. 10 rats weren't scary either. What was scary was tens of thousands of rats. Right now, there were millions of rats. When they pounced, they fought with the clansmen in the valley. Many clansmen were gnawed into bones. As soon as the battle began, it became white-hot. However, the group of rats seemed to have been shocked by the overbearing tiger roar from before. When they were attacking, they all avoided the position where Sakura was at. Awoo! Di Shirtian's eyes were incomparably cold. He looked around and saw that, under the leadership of Chihua and the others, the tribes that migrated in together were all very brave. There were casualties in the battle, but it was not a one-sided situation. Seeing this, he had no intention of helping. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. This was the most basic law of the jungle. If you wanted to become stronger, you had to keep fighting. Only those who could hold on to the end would have the right to live. Survival of the fittest. Only in a battle of life and death could the strongest be determined. Moreover, his opponent now was the Rat King. From the moment the Rat King said that he wanted to eat his flesh, he had already decided to kill it. He let out a low tiger roar and leaped out. His tiger claws shone with a pitch-black light, and the air was torn apart by the tiger claws. In his body, his demonic energy was like a river that had been opened. It circulated violently and poured into the tiger claws. Thick black gas appeared, and the tiger claws mysteriously doubled in size in the blink of an eye. The domineering tiger's aura pressed down from the sky. The Rat King saw that in its 2 small eyes, there was a look of ridicule. It did not dodge. Instead, its body shook and a layer of yellow light burst out from its body, covering its entire body. This yellow light was not rigid. It was like flowing water, producing a kind of lively charm. With this layer of light, the Rat King's aura was different and full of confidence. Dang! The tiger claws that had always been successful landed on the Rat King's body were blocked by the yellow light, and it actually made a crisp sound. This claw felt as if it had landed on a piece of incomparably hard iron. Its defensive power was so strong that it was much stronger than the rats that had just bathed in the divine light. Moreover, the light flowed and quickly dispersed the force of the tiger claws. Squeak! At the same time, the Rat King's 2 claws quickly clawed at Di Shirtian's abdomen. Although Di Shirtian was shocked by the Rat King's defense, he did not lose his calm. All the pores on his body opened up instantly. The demonic energy in his meridians quickly circulated and gushed out from his pores, forming a large amount of black gas. This was the demonic energy unique to the demonic race. When the demonic energy reached a certain level, it condensed into a thick demonic fog that enveloped the body. The tiger body somersaulted in the air. He leaned to the side to avoid this sudden attack. Squeak! With this attack, Rat King's body was only a foot away from Sakura. and at this moment, Rat King's eyes flashed with a trace of complacency. The light in his eyes circulated and silently emitted an inch of radiance, just like a laser beam shooting out from his eyes. This light was unusual. It was yellow in color and shot out an inch. It was incomparably sharp and silent. Facing this strange light, Di Shirtian's demonic fog, which originally had a strong defense, could not even block it for a moment. It was directly penetrated and stabbed into the side of his body. Roar! Di Shirtian and the Rat King's entangled bodies were instantly separated by 3 meters. On the side of his body there were 2 thumb-sized bloody holes. Fresh blood flowed out from the wounds. Short-sighted. Among humans there was a saying called short-sighted rat. All this time, Di Shirtian thought that it was just an idiom. Only now did he know that the Rat King had such a terrifying ability. Normal rats naturally did not have such a terrifying ability. However, the Rat King was different. It often bathed in the mysterious light emitted by the pearl. After a long time, it actually awakened this innate ability. Its 2 eyes could shoot out an inch of light. When used to attack, not only was it silent, but it also had an extremely strong penetrative power. Even with Di Shirtian's tough body that had been tempered daily by demonic energy, it was penetrated in an instant. The attack power of the short-sighted rat's eyes was not weak. Squeak! Black Tiger, this king said before that I want to eat your flesh. Then I will definitely eat your flesh. Seeing that Di Shirtian was injured, the Rat King could not help but reveal a proud expression. The whiskers at the side of its mouth trembled continuously. It seemed to be very proud of itself. Whoosh! The Rat King's body swayed, leaving behind countless afterimages. It waved its claws and pounced forward again. Demonic fog blade. The demonic fog outside Di Shirtian's body began to roll violently. Clang, clang, clang. In the blink of an eye, 10 pitch-black moonlight blades were formed. Chapter 64. Each of the demon mist blades was shaped like a crescent moon and was incomparably black. Once they were formed, they quickly flew up and down around Di Shirtian. Amidst the chaos, they faintly carried a mysterious trajectory. Dang, dang, dang! Under Di Shirtian's control, the demon mist blades drew streaks of pitch-black blade light in front of him. In an instant, they appeared in front of the Rat King and continuously slashed at it. However, the Rat King was not an ordinary rat. Its eyes flickered with light and its body emitted a yellow light that tightly covered its entire body. When the demonic mist blade landed on the Rat King's body, it actually produced a series of metal clanging sounds. Every time the demonic mist blade landed on the Rat King's body, the yellow light outside the Rat King's body would gently ripple, the light flickering like flowing water. The sharp blades were actually forcibly blocked by the yellow light. Like a spear against a shield, they were unable to break through the Rat King's strong defense. Squeak, squeak! This king has the divine light protecting my body. You can't hurt me. When the Rat King saw Di Shirtian suddenly condense several strange blades, it was shocked by the cold light on the blades. Now that it discovered that the demon mist blades were unable to break through its defense, it immediately became arrogant again. It was immensely proud of itself. Humph, no matter how strong your defense is, there will always be a limit. I don't believe that the yellow light outside your body is so strong that it can't be destroyed. Demon mist blades, break, break, break. Di Shirtian was not intimidated and unceremoniously controlled the demon mist blades again. This time, the demon mist blades did not swarm towards the Rat King. Instead, one after another, they slashed at the Rat King's body. Every blade slashed at the same place. This was using a single point to break the Rat King's defense. By concentrating all the attack power on one place, it would definitely pose a great threat to his defense. Roar! When he was controlling the demon mist blades, Di Shirtian did not just watch. Although he did not know why the Rat King had such a strong defense and had the innate ability of being short-sighted, He could clearly feel the dangerous aura emitted from the Rat King's body. If one were to say that his current demonic power was still a little lacking before he could truly fill up all the meridians in his body and reach the peak of the third tier, then he would become a top expert among the demons. Although the Rat King did not have the ability to use demonic power, its strength had definitely reached the peak of demonic power. It could evolve into a demonic beast at any time. In addition to the Rat King's perverse defense, all of his attacks were useless against it. I don't believe that I, D-Shirtion, can't beat a mouse. He made up his mind and opened his huge mouth. Facing the large number of rats that had been killed by Chi Hua and the others, he sucked with all his might. Instantly, a hurricane rose from the ground and swallowed all the rats into his stomach like a whale sucking in water. These rats all live in the southern barbaric mountain range and breathe in the air that contains spirit energy every day. The vital essence and blood essence within every single one of them is much more enormous than the animals outside. If you swallow them and completely refine them, you'll have the chance to break through to the peak of the third level in one go. At that time, my strength will increase again and I'll be able to fight the Rat King to the death and break through the yellow light outside his body. D-Shirtion's eyes shone brightly and his entire body emitted a domineering tiger aura that was as cold as the tide. Swallowing and refining blood in the middle of a battle was undoubtedly an extremely bold move. Such a method was undoubtedly doing two things at once. Everyone knew that if you were distracted in a battle where you were evenly matched with your opponent, then it was simply suicide. The slightest mistake could cost you your life. However, D-Shirtion did exactly that. While controlling the demon mist blades to continuously attack the Rat King, he wantonly swallowed the rat corpses in the surroundings and continuously circulated the tiger roar technique. At this moment, his powerful digestive ability was completely revealed. One by one, the rats were quickly refined into vital essence and vital essence. The vital essence and vital essence were quickly poured into every part of his body. The vital essence and vital essence fused into his flesh and blood, and more than half of the vital essence entered his meridians. Following the circulation of the technique, they fused into his demonic power and strengthened it. During this refining process, he felt that the vital essence and vital essence of the rats were much more enormous than that of ordinary beasts. After swallowing several hundred rats in one gulp, the enormous vital essence turned into rolling heat waves that rose within his body. The pores all over his body opened up and waves of black gas continuously surged out from his body, once again forming a demonic mist. The aura on his body rose even more. Squeak, squeak. After all, the Rat King was not an ordinary rat. Its intelligence was high and could already be compared to an ordinary person. When it saw D-Shirtion actually swallowing its own people, there was no fear in its eyes. Instead, there was a trace of ridicule. Its body instantly leaped forward and waved its rat claws at D-Shirtion, grabbing towards his neck. At the same time, two rays of light shot out from its eyes like sharp arrows, piercing towards D-Shirtion's head. Humph! Sakura originally didn't have the extravagant hope that Rat King would helplessly watch him refine the blood food. He was already prepared for Rat King's attack. He retreated backward with his tiger legs and dodged to the right with his neck. A pitch-black demon mist blade slashed towards Rat King's claws with a pitch-black blade aura, and in front of the two rays of light that he shot out. At the same time, two demonic mist blades also appeared instantly. Dang, dang, dang! The Rat King's defense was incomparably strong. Its rat claws collided with the demonic mist blades without dodging. The yellow light on the rat claws burst out, and the blades were forcibly pushed away. The two rays of light that shot out from its eyes were even more terrifying. Even if the demonic mist blades were facing the sharpest part of the light, under the innate ability of the rat vision, it was immediately pierced into two pieces. The blades were bombarded and collapsed into traces of demonic energy. Bang! How could Tirtion be willing to suffer losses? In a flash, he stretched out his tiger claws, and did not hesitate to inject a large amount of demonic energy into the Rat King, who was right in front of him. The tiger claws immediately doubled in size, and demonic energy filled the air. The claw heavily smashed onto the Rat King's body. Squeak, squeak! Although the Rat King's defense was strong, but when this blow landed on its body, the huge force blasted it away on the spot, and it fell 3 feet away. However, under its abnormal defense, it naturally didn't suffer any damage. It let out 2 sharp cries from its mouth, and immediately saw that the huge group of rats in the surroundings suddenly changed their direction and crazily rushed towards Sakura like a tide. There were so many rats, and their momentum was so fierce. When they rushed over, it was as if a tsunami had occurred. Covered the sky and covered the earth. Roar! Tirtion's eyes became abnormally cold. How could he not know that the Rat King wanted to stop him from refining its food? Not only was he not afraid, but he also opened his mouth and inhaled again. The strong suction force swallowed hundreds of rats on the spot. Heat waves continuously surged out from within his body. Demonic energy quickly swam in his meridians, and the huge amount of essence in his body was continuously refined into demonic energy. In a moment, the demonic energy could be clearly felt growing at a rapid speed. Faster, faster. Just a little more. Tirtion screamed in his heart. He could clearly feel that as long as he took another step forward, all the meridians in his body would be completely filled, and he would break through to the peak of the 3rd tier. Squeak, squeak. At this time, you are obviously looking for death by swallowing your food. The Rat King stood 3 zhang away, and his eyes flashed with a fierce light. Short-sighted rat. The inch-long radiance once again shot out from his eyes, but this time was different. One could only see that this inch-long radiance wasn't like before, only existing in his eyes and attacking an inch in front of him. Instead, it was like 2 flying swords, instantly breaking free from the restraints of his eyes, shooting out, silently flying through the air. It pierced through Tirtion's head. What? The Rat King's move was completely out of Tirtion's imagination. Previously, the rat's short-sighted light could only shoot an inch away from his eyes. He also thought that although this innate ability was strong, it still had its flaws. He didn't expect that this inch light could actually fly out of his body and attack. The inch light came as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already appeared in front of him. It was so fast that he didn't even have time to dodge. Ah! Tirtion's eyes showed traces of madness. Danger, danger, extreme danger. In these 2 rays of light, he could feel the aura of death. There was a terrifying power hidden inside. There was definitely a power that could pierce through his head in an instant and kill him on the spot. The aura of death. It brought him a kind of oppression that he had never felt before. His mind trembled violently. Under this intense stimulation, the demonic power in his body was running wildly at an unprecedented speed. From head to toe, every inch of his muscles was trembling. Roar! A domineering tiger roar that shook the sky came out when the inch light was 0.0001 millimeters away from Tirtion's head. The astonishing tiger roar shook the entire myriad demon valley for a moment and shook violently. The 2 rays of light were the first to bear the brunt of the tiger roar, and were shattered on the spot. Boom! Boom! The surrounding stones and trees exploded one after another. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tirtion's aura completely changed at this moment. The domineering aura of the King of Beasts spewed out from his body. Countless black demonic aura quickly enveloped the surroundings. His already huge body began to grow crazily again at this moment. Tirtion clearly felt that the blood essence refined from the blood food was fusing with the flesh and blood of his whole body at an astonishing speed. During this process of fusion, his body was also constantly growing bigger and stronger. The thick tiger aura also continued to rise in the blink of an eye. Powerful, powerful, and even more powerful. The ferocious pressure of the king of beasts filled the entire myriad demon valley. The millions of rats were directly pressed to the ground under this powerful pressure. Their bodies were constantly trembling like a sieve. The rats' eyes, which were originally full of ferocity, were replaced by fear. It looked like it couldn't wait to drill into the ground immediately. Impossible. The Rat King looked at Deshertion with an incredulous look in its eyes. Chapter 65. Clang, clang, clang. The dense demonic fog outside Sakra's body rolled violently, and at the same time, it quickly shrank towards the center. Amidst a few intense blade sounds, in a split second, one could see that the originally dense demonic fog had actually magically condensed into crescent-shaped blades, revolving around his body and flying up and down. At this time, not only did the demonic fog blades become more condensed, but their aura was also incomparably cold. In terms of numbers, there were 5 more blades, and the total number was as many as 15 blades. When they flew, there was no flaw in them at all. The tiger's body expanded again, and became more than 10 feet tall. Just by standing in front of the huge tiger's body, it gave people a kind of intimidating aura. The dense tiger's aura broke people's courage. Roar! Rat King, your only reliance is your powerful defense. Today, I will break through your defense and let you know that there is no such thing as the strongest defense in this world. Break, break, break. Indra's tiger eyes emitted a cold light. His cultivation was originally on the verge of a breakthrough. The only thing he lacked was his demonic power. If there were no accidents, even if he cultivated in the valley, he would be able to naturally break through in 10 days to half a month and truly step into the peak of the demonic realm. He would have the qualifications to break through to the next realm. However, this time, the Rat King's pressure and its unbreakable defense forced him to take the risk. This was a sudden idea. He wanted to devour the rats to refine their essence, blood, and energy, and convert it into demon power. He wanted to use the essence blood of these rats to break through in one go. Stepping onto the peak. Sure enough, with the strong pressure from the Rat King, he was able to break through at the last moment. This way, not only did it save time, but it also turned the situation around at this moment. Clang! Under Deshertion's control, a demonic fog blade instantly shot out from beside him, leaving behind countless afterimages in the air. It appeared above the Rat King's head and slashed down. Squeak! The Rat King once again used the rat's eyes light. An inch-long beam of light shot out and slammed into the demon mist blade. This innate skill was indeed powerful. Even though the demon mist blade had been condensed and strengthened, it was still destroyed by the demon mist blade. However, it was not that there was no improvement. At least, it lasted for an instant under the light. Cut, cut, cut. You may be able to block one, but can you block the rest of my demonic fog blades? Today, I will break your tortoise shell. Indra's eyes were ice-cold. With an intention of his will, the demonic mist blades revolving around him all moved. One after another, they flew up into the air, slashing down towards Rat King Pai. Not only that, all of them were aiming at the same location. He wanted to see to what extent the Rat King was able to imitate him. Clang! The demonic mist blades struck King Rat's body again and again. Moreover, their speed was as fast as lightning, and their attacks were extremely ferocious, far exceeding King Rat's expectations. The Rat King felt its blood boil violently, and the yellow light outside its body flickered as if it would be destroyed at any moment. How can this black tiger be so powerful? Can even break through in the middle of a battle? These strange blades have become stronger. No, I can't block them. I can't stay here any longer. The Rat King was born to be timid. This was in its blood. Although the Rat King was full of confidence due to its great strength, and even dared to think of eating Chertion when it met him, it was still confident. That was because it had absolute confidence in its defense. Under the constant illumination of the divine light, it had long felt that its defense was getting stronger every day. The increase in strength made its innate timidity disappear. It was confident that as long as it was not a demonic beast, no one could break through its defense and hurt it. That was why it dared to provoke it. In the beginning, the truth was just as he had expected. Sakra's attacks were indeed unable to break through his defense, but now, under the continuous attacks of the demonic mist blades, he felt that his own defense would most likely be unable to withstand it. The Rat King's natural cowardice once again appeared in its heart when it realized that it could no longer rely on its master. Bang! At this moment, another demonic fog blade came down. After withstanding the repeated attacks, the yellow light outside the Rat King's body was destroyed. The Rat King spat out a mouthful of blood. Short-sighted rat! The Rat King glanced at Chertion, and 2 rays of light shot out like sharp arrows. Crash! At the same time, the Rat King didn't even look at the attack. It waved its claws and dug into the ground with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, a huge hole appeared in the ground. The Rat King's huge body drilled into the hole with a whoosh. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the ground, fleeing in panic. Squeak, squeak! When the rats saw that their king had escaped, they did not have any fighting spirit left. They all rushed into the hole. Roar! However, how could Chertion let them escape so easily? He immediately let out a tyrannical tiger roar. It was like countless explosions in the valley. Some of the rats that did not have time to get into the hole only felt a roar in their head. Blood came out of their eyes, ears, nose, and mouth at the same time. They were shaken to death. If someone came over to check, they would find that the inside of these rats' heads had been shaken into a mess of flesh and blood. They could not be more dead. These rats had bathed in the divine light. Obviously, the power of the divine light could not last long. Now that it was almost dissipating, how could they resist the tyrannical tiger roar? Almost 90% of the rats that came died in the valley. Chihua came to Chertion's side and asked, "King, what do we do now?" Sparks flew out of his nose as he looked at the dead rats on the ground. "Your Majesty, the way I see it, we can't just let this matter go like this. How dare some rats who hide underground be so brazen as to want to eat your flesh?" Bai Susu's eyes shone with a ferocious glint. "That's right, King. We cannot let this matter rest. Tens of thousands of our tribesmen have died. They were all gnawed into bones by those damned rats." Wolf King Bai Yu's eyes shone with a green light. It was a frightening green. Sakra looked at the cave not far away. His gaze was incomparably deep as he said, "Of course it's not over yet. If Rat King wants to eat my flesh, that means he wants my life. If he wants to take my life, I won't let him live in this world. This debt will be settled with them sooner or later. But not now." Naturally, he wanted to kill the Rat King. However, the Rat King lived underground. This was a place he could not reach. He could not find him for the time being. Moreover, the rat's powerful defensive abilities made him feel strange. That kind of strength was not permanent on ordinary rat. Instead, there was a time limit. When it reached a certain stage, it would gradually dissipate. He had already seen this point. Abnormal, there must be a demon. There must be a secret hidden in such an abnormal matter. Chihua, let's put this matter aside for now. The only thing we can do now is to increase our strength in the shortest time possible. These rats all grew up in the southern barbaric mountain range. Their flesh and blood contain rich essence. Quickly bring our tribesmen to collect them. In the future we can eat them as food. After refining them we can increase our strength. Chertion finished giving his orders and turned to leave. He had also suffered some minor injuries due to his short-sightedness. Although he had succeeded in his risky breakthrough, he needed time to familiarize and stabilize his demonic power. Moreover, from the Rat King's short-sightedness, he could sense that if a demonic beast awakened an innate talent, its ability would be truly terrifying. In the sky above the Chu country's capital, a ball of dense purple energy was hovering above the imperial city. The purple energy was constantly rolling, and a purple divine dragon could be faintly seen within the purple energy. This purple energy could not be seen by ordinary people. In the back mountain of the imperial palace, which contained many magnificent palaces, there was an ancient manor hidden in the mountains. The entire manor exuded an ancient charm, and in this ancient charm, there was a trace of imperial aura. It was as if there was a true dragon hibernating within this manor. On the manor's plaque there was only one word, Chu. This Chu word was obviously written by a master. The characters were written in a flamboyant style. Hanging on the plaque, it was as if a true dragon was about to soar into the sky. If one looked at it carefully, they would instantly feel as if they were that dragon soaring into the sky. There was a mysterious Tao contained within it. At this moment, there were a few people sitting in the main hall of the manor. One of them was a middle-aged man who wore a purple robe and had a noble aura around him. His face was dignified without being angry. He sat on the main seat. Although he was only sitting on an ordinary chair, it made people feel like he was sitting on the dragon throne in the main hall of an imperial palace. He had a supreme aura that could swallow the world. In the main hall, there was a handsome young man with an ancient sword on his back. He was dressed in a snow-white robe, and he was as handsome as a demon. He had an awe-inspiring righteous aura, and with one look, one could tell that he was a dragon among men. If Di Shirtian were here, he would be able to clearly recognize that this young man was none other than Zhong Yunfei, who had once fought with him. In the main hall, there were 3 old men and a petite young girl standing by the side. Her beautiful eyes blinked as she looked at Zhong Yunfei, and there was a trace of curiosity in her expression. Coincidentally, Di Shirtian also knew this young girl. Moreover, he had interacted with her several times. She was the little princess of the Chu kingdom, Chu Yun, Princess Chu Yun. Martial nephew Yunfei, you're saying that on the way here, you fought with a demon and were severely injured. Even your junior brother died at its hands. The middle-aged man frowned slightly and said in a dignified manner, I once heard from your master that the entire soaring firmament sect gathered precious materials and took out the only piece of profound heaven stone to help you refine a life-bound magic artifact. Its power is not inferior to a magic weapon in the slightest. When you were at your level, how could demons below the level of demonic beasts be your match? Chapter 66. I'm ashamed to say this. Hearing this, Zhong Yunfei's face was slightly embarrassed. He said, Junior is indeed not skilled enough and has let down the sect. However, that spiritual beast is indeed very strange. Its intelligence is probably not below that of a human. Moreover, it can actually use demonic power. Generally speaking, before the demon clan becomes a demonic beast, it is very rare for them to cultivate demonic power and have the ability to use demonic power. Yunfei can be sure that its strength is absolutely strong below that of a demonic beast. He did not hypocritically deny that he was defeated and fled in front of Di Shirtian. Instead, he bluntly admitted it. However, he voiced the doubts in his heart. When this junior went down the mountain this time, I have beheaded more than a dozen monsters along the way, but I have never encountered such a special one. Zhong Yunfei simply narrated the scene of the fierce battle with Sakura. Only then did he ask. Chu Yun, who was standing at the side, was listening. Her eyes lit up, and her face was eager to give it a try. She suddenly said, Senior brother Zhong, did the black tiger you met have a purple king pattern on its forehead? Its body is also much bigger than an ordinary tiger. Her voice was clear and pleasant, but it was a bit too prominent in the hall. After listening to Zhong Yunfei's story, the middle-aged man and the 3 old men were silently pondering. When they heard Chu Yun's voice, they couldn't help but look at her. The middle-aged man frowned slightly. The air in the hall suddenly became suffocating. He glanced at Chu Yun and said, "Yun-er, have you forgotten that you can't interrupt the discussion in the hall?" "Humph, I'll let it go this time. If there's a next time, you'll go to the Cliff of Reflection to reflect on your mistakes for 3 months." When Chu Yun heard the words Cliff of Reflection, a trace of fear flashed through her eyes. She quickly stuck out her bright red tongue and said playfully, "I know, father. Yun-er won't dare to do it again." This middle-aged man was actually her father, the king of the Chu country, Chu Tianqing. Behind the state of Chu was the Chu clan. In the immortal cultivation world, the Chu clan was one of the most powerful immortal cultivation clans, a top-notch immortal cultivation clan. Within the clan, there were nascent soul-old eccentrics, who were able to intimidate the weak. The emperor of the state of Chu was the clan leader of the Chu clan. Such a family was the most law-abiding. In such a discussion, Chu Yun was not qualified to interrupt. There will be a next time." Chu Tianqing snorted heavily. He looked at Zhong Yunfei and said, "Yun-er, junior nephew Zhong just came to the mountain villa. Bring your senior brother Zhong for a walk." When Chu Yun heard this, she felt that this was exactly what she wanted. She just happened to have something to ask Zhong Yunfei. Now that the opportunity had come, she agreed without hesitation. "Father, Yun-er will definitely bring senior brother Zhong to have a good time in the manor. If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you." Zhong Yunfei was also a smart person. When he heard this, he immediately knew that Chu Tianqing and the others definitely had something to discuss. It was not appropriate for him to be present, so he immediately went with the flow. After bowing to everyone in the hall one by one, under Chu Yun's lead, the two left the hall one after the other. Clan leader, according to what Zhong Yunfei said, that black tiger must have extremely high intelligence. Moreover, it is different from ordinary spirit beasts. It actually understood how to cultivate demonic qi before it became a demonic beast. This black tiger is most likely the one Yun-er met in the Tiger Hill mountain range. The person sitting in the first seat below was the Chu clan's great elder, Chu Yu. In the ancient books that have been passed down in the clan for thousands of years, it is recorded that in the ancient times, as long as the demon clan had intelligence, they could cultivate demonic qi. Before they became demonic beasts, they could begin to cultivate demonic qi. However, in the demon clan, there are only a few who know this kind of demonic cultivation secret method. Even if there were, how could an ordinary spirit beast that grew up in the Tiger Hill mountain range obtain such a secret method? I'm worried that this black tiger might be an anomaly in the demon clan. A trace of worry flashed across the face of the second elder, Chu Nan. Ha! At this time, the third elder, who was sitting at the back, laughed and said, "Big brother, second brother, aren't you thinking too much? So what if it's a little unusual? In today's purple gold continent, how can the demon clan amount to anything? Other than the 8 great demon kings, there aren't many who can be brought out." Hearing the discussion of the 3 elders, Chu Tianqing, who was sitting at the head of the table, said with a solemn expression, "Although the demon clan has indeed declined, and the strongest are only the 8 great demon kings, which are no match for us immortal cultivators, we can't be too careless. In the clan's records, we've seen descriptions of the demon clan's heyday. It's really terrifying. Moreover, once they know how to cultivate, the demon clan's potential is not inferior to ours. In ancient times, when the demon clan was in its heyday, it suddenly suffered a great calamity. If countless demon clan experts had completely disappeared from the continent overnight, I'm afraid that in today's continent, the demon clan and the human clan situation would have been reversed." At the mention of demons, Chu Tianqing's brow furrowed in fear. From the beginning of the Chu clan until now, it had a long history of thousands of years. Compared to many sects, it had been around for longer. The longer it had been around, the more things it naturally knew than ordinary people. For example, there were some secrets about the ancient times that some large sects did not know, but the Chu clan had many records that had been passed down. Legend had it that in ancient times, the demon clan experts' bodies alone could be thousands of feet long. With a raise of their hands, they could break the heavens. At that time, humans were just the weakest kind. The situation was just like today's humans and the demon clan. However, history took a shocking turn in ancient times. The powerful demon clan actually walked on the path of decline overnight. Countless powerhouses mysteriously disappeared together, leaving only a few small fries left in the demon clan. They were unable to stop the tide of decline at all, and humans took the opportunity to begin to rise. In a short period of time, their strength increased crazily. A large number of peerless geniuses emerged and eventually led humans to the position of the master of the continent. In such a shocking turn of events, countless demon clan secret techniques were lost. Only a few were left. Until today, the demon clan's strength had long been a thing of the past. However, those who knew about that period of history were still very wary of the demon clan. No matter what, this black tiger is definitely extraordinary. Ordinary spiritual beasts can't have such high intelligence. The sound waves of the tiger's roar and that strange blade. According to Zhong Yunfei, it has a very strong attack power. No matter what, I think we should send someone to investigate. Chu Tianxing's gaze was very deep. It was difficult to see anything from his eyes. Yes, I heard from that the Li clan's young master died under the black tiger's claws. Even their clan's treasure, the psychic compass, was lost. In my opinion, perhaps we don't need to investigate the black tiger at all. If we leak a little information to the Li clan, I'm sure they'll be happy to help. The second elder's lips curled into a meaningful smile. His eyes flashed. In the blink of an eye, he came up with a plan to drive the wolf to devour the tiger. Let the Li clan do the work while they waited for the result. Whether the Li clan's young master died or not might not be a big deal to the entire Li clan. If he died, they could just give birth to another one. However, the Li clan's psychic compass was a rare treasure in the entire immortal cultivation world. If it was lost, it would be a huge loss to the Li clan. If word got out, even if the Li clan knew that it would not be a good thing, they would still have to bite the bullet and do as the Chu clan expected. That's right. 3 elders, what do you think of Zhong Yunfei? Chu Tianxing's tone suddenly changed, and he actually led the topic to Zhong Yunfei. A dragon among men? A talent above all others. With time, he will definitely become a great person. Although they had only stayed for a short while, with their experience, they could clearly feel the potential in Zhong Yunfei. Not to mention his righteousness, his talent was excellent, and he was fully nurtured by the sect. It could be foreseen that in the future, this person would definitely be a genius among the younger generation. In the Myriad Demon Valley, Di Shirtian naturally did not know that thousands of miles away, there were people who were interested in him. At this moment, he was in the cave, lying on a piece of soft fur. In front of him, the ancient imperial heavenly treasure box was placed right in front of him. Stretching out his tiger claws, he continuously moved the jigsaw puzzle pieces on the box. Every time he moved a jigsaw puzzle piece, he would pause for a moment. He first simulated it in his mind a few times, and when he felt that it was feasible, he started. He already knew the name of the treasure box from the conversation between the celestial fragrance fox monarch and Taoist Qinyun. He also saw them fight over it with his own eyes. If the treasure box that could make 2 experts who could kill him at any time cared so much about was an ordinary item, Di Shirtian would find a piece of tofu and kill himself on the spot. Along the way, he had to move and be vigilant of the dangers along the way. Although he silently simulated it in his mind whenever he had free time, it was the first time he actually started the puzzle again. A puzzle that had been cut into thousands of pieces, and to put it back together, this project was extremely difficult. It was really amazing. Driven by curiosity, Tian was completing this almost impossible task bit by bit. What will be in the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box? When he was puzzling, Tian also secretly guessed, is it a kind of magical cultivation method? Is it a powerful magic treasure? Or is it some kind of magical elixir? Everyone was curious. If he was not curious, Tian would not want to complete the puzzle and open the treasure box. Because of almost a month of thinking and deducing, he already had a very deep understanding of the puzzle, and some of the piecing plans were in his mind. He stretched out his tiger claws and moved the pieces quickly. As time passed, the pieces that were originally unrelated were connected together one after another. More than 2 hours later, a small piece of the pattern was slowly pieced together on the treasure box. I owe you the second update for now. I want to have a good night's rest to prepare for the upcoming push. To be honest, I've been working late these past few days. I'm a little tired. Chapter 67. What is this? Tian's eyes widened in astonishment. The piece of puzzle that he had pieced together was actually a slender tail that bore some resemblance to his tiger tail. It was also slightly different from his tiger tail. All in all, it was somewhat similar. He couldn't immediately come to a conclusion as to what kind of creature this was. However, what was certain was that the picture on this puzzle should be the image of an animal. After piecing together the puzzle, the piece of puzzle glowed with a rainbow light. This tail is very strange. It seems to be similar to any kind of animal. I wonder what the pattern in the picture will look like after the complete picture is pieced together. Tian couldn't help but feel curious. However, Tian was confident that he had pieced together a portion of the puzzle. The more pieces there were, the more difficult the puzzle would be. Now that he had completed a portion of the puzzle, the rest would be much easier. As long as he continued piecing together the puzzle, it would only get easier. The most difficult part was just the first step. After pondering for a moment, Zhang Xian began piecing together the puzzle once more. Every time he moved a piece, he would ponder over the next step in his head. That piece of puzzle was similar to the other piece he had pieced together. It was extremely taxing on his mental strength. King! King! It was at this moment that Bai Susu's anxious voice sounded from outside the cave. Furthermore, her voice was getting closer and closer. Clearly, she was getting closer and closer. The moment Tian heard her voice, he immediately placed the Imperial Sky treasure box into his storage pouch. Even though he believed in the loyalty of his subordinates, the matter of the Imperial Sky treasure box had too many implications. He didn't want anyone other than himself to know about it. Susu, why are you in such a hurry? Could it be that those rats have returned? As soon as he put away the Imperial Sky treasure box, Bai Susu's thick and slender body slithered into the cave. Her eyes were filled with shock. King, it's not the rats. They found a strange place in the valley. Bai Susu shook her head and said, many of our tribesmen have been frozen. Even Baiwei is injured. King, you should hurry over and take a look. What? There's such a place in the valley? Hurry up and take me there. When Sakura heard this, his heart froze. Although when he entered the valley, he felt that the valley was so hidden, and there were very few creatures here, it was definitely not an ordinary thing. Such a place, logically speaking, should be a place where many demon beasts would fight to occupy. One had to know that the spirit chi in the valley was several times denser than outside. Therefore, although he had been stationed in the valley, he had never been completely at ease. He had asked Chihua and the others to send people to explore various places. They had to figure out all the terrain of the entire Myriad Demon Valley. It seemed that they had really found something strange this time. Hearing Bai Susu's words, Sakura didn't hesitate at all. He let her lead the way and walked side by side. On the way, he also asked about the various things and sights of that place. Your Majesty, when your subordinates were exploring the west side of the valley, we discovered that there was a large hill in the west. In front of the hill there was a very large stone slab. The stone slab had a very strong cold air. When your subordinates approached the stone slab, they were suddenly frozen by the cold air emitted by the stone slab. Even Baiwe was injured, Baisusu said as she quickly swam forward. Huge hill? Big stone slab? Dishirtion's head was full of fog when he heard that. He didn't understand what she meant by that. He thought to himself, it seems that I can only know when I see it with my own eyes. I won't understand if I just listen to her. He could not blame Baisusu. After all, she was a spirit beast that grew up in the mountains. Although she was intelligent, she did not know much, unlike Dishirtion. She was reincarnated with the memories of her previous life. Perhaps there was something that she could not explain. The valley was divided into north, south, east, and west. There was a waterfall in the east, a path leading to the outside of the valley in the north, and a dense forest in the south. Yuan Tian led the monkeys to settle down there, and even dug out a cave. As long as they were ready, they could start brewing the monkey spirit wine. On the other hand, the west side was a little desolate. There were all kinds of rocks on the ground. However, due to the rich spiritual energy in the valley, there were still many flowers and grass growing among the rocks. Regardless of whether it was Baisusu or Dishirtion, they were no ordinary wild beasts. They rushed forward with all their might, and soon, the scenery before them opened up. Amidst the rocks of various sizes, there was a towering hill. In front of the hill there was a huge obelisk. Chihua, Inkong, and the others were surrounding the obelisk. However, there was a distance of several dozen meters between them and the obelisk. King, it's there. Baisusu looked at the hill and the obelisk and said, Come, let's go and take a look. Dishirtion led the way, leaping over the rocks in front of him. They arrived before the obelisk. King. Upon seeing Dishirtion, Chihua and the others immediately bowed to him respectfully. There was respect and admiration in their eyes. After Dishirtion made his move time and time again, his powerful strength had already made all of the tribe members submit to him and respect him. Dishirtion gestured for them to rise, but his eyes were fixed on the huge obelisk in front of him. The stone tablet rose from the ground. It looked as if it had grown out of the ground. Traces of ancient aura circled around the tablet. It was extremely simple and unadorned. There were also countless mysterious runes covering the tablet. They were not messy and instead they gave off a mysterious charm. There were words in the middle of the obelisk. Even if she had a peerless beauty, even if she was a peerless genius, even if she had lived through the ages, and once the sky fell, the blood of billions of creatures. This is a tomb? Dishirtion was shocked. Baisusu and the others did not recognize it, but he knew it. The obelisk was erected in front of the hill. The hill was not a hill. The shape of the hill was exactly the same as the tombs built in the secular world. It was just that the tombs were many times bigger. This was definitely a tomb. There was an obelisk in front of the tomb. This obelisk was a tombstone. However, the strange thing was that the name of the person in the tomb was not engraved on the tombstone. There was no record of the deceased, nor was there a signature of the person who erected the tomb. Instead, there was only a paragraph of strange words. Although it was only 5 short sentences, it was very difficult to understand what was engraved on the tombstone. Why is there a tomb in the Myriad Demon Valley? Strange, it's really strange. A look of contemplation could be seen in Sacre Tianhu's eyes. Judging from the ancient chi emitted from the tombstone, he knew that this ancient tomb must have existed for a very long time. To be able to erect such a gigantic tomb after its death, it must have existed for a very long time. It seemed that the person in the tomb was even more extraordinary. Pata! Thinking of this, Sakura wanted to pass through the stone tablet and look at the ancient tomb behind it. Chihua and Inkong shouted together, "My king, don't get close to the obelisk. It's strange. It's emitting a terrible cold air." However, their shouting was obviously a little too slow. Just when Tion was 10 meters away from the obelisk, a shocking cold air suddenly burst out of the obelisk. This cold air was like a volcanic eruption. It turned into a cloud of white fog and instantly expanded and swept in all directions. Whoosh! Wherever the white fog went, a thick layer of ice crystals appeared on the ground. It was at least a meter thick and rolled like wave. With the obelisk as the center, an area of 30 meters was completely covered in ice crystals. Within this range, everything was completely frozen. Roar! At the edge of the ice crystals, Tion looked frightened. Starting from his feet, a thick layer of ice crystals began to spread rapidly throughout his body. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was completely frozen by this thick layer of ice crystals. He had become a huge ice sculpture standing in front of the obelisk. This obelisk is really scary. After listening to Baisusu's story, he naturally did not approach the obelisk unprepared. He seemed to be walking casually toward the obelisk, but at that time, his mind was already in a state of full alert. His essence, chi, and spirit were at their peak. As long as there was an unforeseen event, he would jump back. In fact, that was exactly what he did. When the white mist gushed out from the stone tablet, his body also leaped out a moment ago. But even if he was prepared, he didn't expect that the white fog would come so quickly. It didn't give him any chance to escape at all. Before he could get out of the range of the white fog, Sakura was frozen on the spot. Standing on the ground, in the ice, he was still in the position of wanting to escape. It was very lifelike. At the moment when he was frozen, Tion could not help but laugh bitterly in his heart. Curiosity really killed the tiger. King. When Chihua saw that Tion was frozen in an instant, his eyes turned red. He breathed heavily, and 2 huge pillars of fire shot out from his nostrils. The flames were so hot that they burned the area in front of him red. The flames jumped violently. Like agile snakes, they turned nimbly in the air and swept towards Tion's ice sculpture. Sizzling sounds could be heard as the flames burned the air. The flames soared high and contained a high temperature. Under these 2 fire pillars, even stones would be burned into powder in the first moment. However, before they could get close to Tion's ice sculpture, they were extinguished by the cold air emitted by the ice sculpture. The cold air was so strong that even Chihua's innate ability was useless against it. How scary! Who set up this tomb? Just a tombstone alone can freeze me in an instant. Although he was frozen, at the moment of being frozen, Sakura didn't hesitate to operate the tiger roar technique, making the demonic power in his meridians continuously circulate like flowing water, resisting the terrifying cold air outside his body. He wanted to stop the cold air from invading his body. However, compared to the cold air outside his body, his demonic energy was like the difference between heaven and earth. His demonic energy was quickly retreating like a tide. Looking at the situation, it would only take a few breaths for the cold air to completely freeze him, not only the outside but also the inside of his body. Chapter 68. The fire pillar that Chihua spat out couldn't even get close to him. This was also seen by him. His heart was inexplicably horrified. If his entire body was frozen by the cold air, he was afraid that he would really become an ice sculpture. No, I can't die. White Tiger Mother, my younger brother and sister are still waiting for me to save them. I have already died once in my previous life. I haven't finished my task yet. I definitely can't die. Ah! Tion screamed crazily in his heart. At this moment of life and death, countless scenes appeared in his mind. He thought of many things, including his previous life and the scene of White Tiger Mother and the others being captured by the immortal cultivators. He himself was unwilling to silently die like this. A strong will to live completely emerged at this moment. Under the stimulation of this emotion, the demonic power in his body also erupted with a burst of potential. The demonic power that was originally retreating indignantly resisted for a moment. In an instant, it caused the cold air that was originally like a hot knife through butter to suddenly stop. Just in this moment, it was as if it was really stimulated by his will to live. He only saw that the storage bag that had been tied to his body suddenly burst out with a ball of white light. The bag suddenly opened, and a slender and peerless jade embryo impressively flew out of the storage bag on its own. The jade embryo was a full 8 feet long, taller than an adult. Buzz, buzz, buzz! After the jade embryo flew out, it tightly stuck to Di Shirtian's back and violently trembled a few times. Strands of sparkling jade light, like the continuous drizzle of spring, quickly burst out in all directions. This jade light seemed to contain a mysterious power. The cold air that originally wanted to freeze everything actually magically melted under the jade light. This is the strength of the boulder. When the jade embryo tightly stuck to his back, Di Shirtian only felt that a gentle power continuously flowed from the jade embryo into his body. It quickly flowed through every inch of his flesh and blood, every inch of his meridians. Under this mysterious power, the cold air that had frozen his body began to dissipate. His entire body felt as if it was soaking in a hot spring. It was warm and had an indescribable comfort. Boulder's strength. The mysterious power that came from the jade embryo was the boulder's strength that he had felt before. In the past, I thought that the jade embryo had been destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. Fortunately, it wasn't discarded. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to save me again today. It seems that the jade embryo is indeed a supreme treasure. Di Shirtian pondered for a moment and realized that the jade embryo he had obtained from the boulder was most likely a treasure. At the very least, from the fact that it could disperse the cold air, one could tell that it was definitely not an ordinary item. However, he did not think too much about it. He immediately borrowed the energy from the jade embryo to quickly circulate it in his meridians. With the endless energy from the jade embryo, the cold energy in his body seemed to have met its nemesis and quickly dissipated. Crack! The ice crystal outside his body quickly melted under the light of the jade embryo. In the blink of an eye, when the cold energy in his body was dispelled, the ice that sealed his body began to change. With a crisp sound, a slender crack appeared on the ice crystal. This sound was like a signal. Following this crack, cracks of various sizes appeared densely on every inch of the ice crystal. Bang! Di Shirtian's eyes in the ice suddenly opened. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes. All the pores on his body suddenly opened, and a tyrannical demonic aura instantly spewed out. With the support of the jade embryo, a boundless confidence emerged in his heart. At this moment, he was confident that he could shatter the ice that sealed him. The dominance of the king of beasts was unmistakable. When the demonic aura collided with the ice crystal, the originally cracked ice crystal seemed to have been struck by lightning. With a loud bang, it completely shattered, turning into small pieces of ice that sputtered in all directions, revealing Di Shirtian's original body. Whoosh! When the ice was broken, the jade embryo's light suddenly retracted. All of the jade embryo's light returned to the jade embryo. Furthermore, the mysterious energy that had been injected into Di Shirtian's body also left his body in the blink of an eye. Chihua and the others saw this and were overjoyed. They quickly surrounded Di Shirtian and asked, "King, are you all right?" "King, it's all my fault. I should have warned you earlier." Bai Susu's eyes were filled with self-blame. She blamed herself for the danger that they had just encountered. In her heart, she believed that if she had warned him earlier, this danger would not have happened. Seeing how his subordinates were so concerned about him, Di Shirtian felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He said, "Susu, this is not your fault. You told me earlier that there's something strange about the stone tablet. I just wanted to test its power. If you want to blame someone, it's my own fault for being too reckless." As he spoke, he turned to look at the tombstone. His gaze was incomparably deep. Pass down the order later. No one is allowed to go near the ancient tomb and the tombstone. From today onwards, no one is allowed to speak of what they had just seen. Otherwise, they will be severely punished. Chertion took a deep breath and gave the order. Although he did not know who was buried in the ancient tomb, he had a feeling that the ancient tomb was hiding a shocking secret. Thinking about it, just the tombstone in front of the ancient tomb had such terrifying power. The eruption of cold air, in his opinion, was so powerful that even a nascent soul-stage-old monster would not be able to escape the fate of being frozen. From this, one could imagine what kind of dangers the ancient tomb contained. What kind of secrets would be hidden in the ancient tomb? Who was buried in the ancient tomb? What did the words on the tombstone mean? Chertion knew a little about the first few words. Even if there was a peerless beauty, it referred to a peerless beauty that could cause the downfall of countries and cities. Even if there was a peerless talent, it was easy to understand the peerless talent in this sentence. A peerless talent was just a peerless cultivation potential. As long as he cultivated, he would definitely become a strong person in the world. He could be called a peerless talent. Even if there was an eternal existence, it was easy to understand. But at the end of the sentence, once the sky falls, billions of lives will be shed. This sentence really made people feel extremely confused. It was as if there was a secret hidden in this sentence. The secrets in the ancient tomb are not something that I can touch on now. After what happened just now, Chertion already knew his own limit. If he forced himself to investigate the secrets of the ancient tomb, he might not know who was buried in the ancient tomb before, but the person who was about to be buried in the tomb would definitely be himself. Only by becoming stronger could he be qualified to explore the infinite mysteries of heaven and earth. Chertion silently made up his mind. Yes, Your Majesty. Chihua, Kong, and the others heard and agreed without hesitation. They also saw the situation just now with their own eyes. Even the king was frozen. If they touched it, they would be turned into ice sculptures on the spot. Faintly, in their hearts, this place had already become a forbidden area. Not to mention, even if they wanted to, they did not want to think about the last time. Nodding, he let Chihua and the other 5 lead the rest of the tribesmen away. Chertion's gaze fell on the jade embryo beside him. After this incident, he felt that the connection between him and the jade embryo seemed to have become deeper. However, when he examined it again, he found that the jade embryo was still the same as when he was in Tiger Hill Mountain. No matter whether he used his demon consciousness or demon power, there was no way to detect the hidden power in the jade embryo. No matter how he looked at it, it looked like an ordinary jade embryo. Good heavens, what is this jade embryo? After seeing its magic just now, he naturally did not think that it was an ordinary jade embryo, but a top treasure. However, he had no way to make it display its peerless power now. Immortal cultivators have all kinds of magic weapons and magic weapons. If I use the jade embryo as a material to refine a magic weapon, will I be able to refine a unique treasure? Looking at the jade embryo, Chertion suddenly had an idea in his mind. The jade embryo was very magical. This was indeed a good point. However, the jade embryo was only an embryo after all. If he wanted to use it, the best way was to refine it into a magic weapon or magic weapon. In this world, he had seen many immortal cultivators, and each of them had various Dharma artifacts, and Dharma treasures. Sakura also wanted to have them, but all along, his strength was too weak and he was busy migrating, so he didn't consider it. Now, the jade embryo evoked his desire to have a magic weapon or magic weapon of his own. Use the jade embryo to refine a magic weapon. After pondering for a while, he stared at the jade embryo for a while. Only then did he put the jade embryo back into his storage bag. After that, He turned around and left the graveyard without looking back. He quickly ran back to his cave dwelling. Regardless of whether it was the ancient tomb or the jade embryo, they were not things that he could do with his current strength. Now, the only thing he needed to do was to raise his cultivation as quickly as possible. In the battle with the Rat King, his demonic power had already filled his meridians, reaching the peak of the third layer. The plan to open up a spirit dwelling should also be put on the agenda. His huge tiger body nimbly shuttled through the mountain forest, secretly thinking about opening up a spirit dwelling. Opening up a spirit dwelling was not a simple matter. This was the key step in establishing the foundation of a demon cultivator's path. Without a spirit dwelling, there was no way to begin demon cultivation. Moreover, whether a spirit dwelling was good or bad, it was directly related to how far a demon cultivator could go on the demon cultivation path, and what kind of battle strength they could ultimately possess. For example, in human cultivation, one's aptitude depended on whether a person had a spirit root, as well as the quality of the spirit root. Good spirit roots would naturally allow one to cultivate very quickly. Poor spirit roots would often cultivate diligently for a year, only to increase one's cultivation in a month. From this, it could be seen how big the gap was. The importance of a spirit dwelling to a demon cultivator was similar to that of a spirit root. There were also good and bad spirit roots. Chapter 69. Demon mansions were divided into different grades. From high to low they were Heaven grade, Earth grade, Mystic grade, and Yellow grade. The grade represented the amount of spiritual energy the demon manor could absorb, the speed at which it absorbed the essence of the sun and moon, and the amount of demonic power it could store. There were also other mysterious effects. If one were to compare, one could think of it this way. If a heaven grade demon manor was opened, the amount of spiritual energy it could absorb in a day was equivalent to the amount a yellow grade demon manor could absorb in a month or more. Moreover, the amount of demonic power a demon manor could store was vastly different. The Mystic grade was 10 times more than the Yellow grade, the Earth grade was 10 times more than the Mystic grade, and the Heaven grade was 10 times more than the Earth grade. Think about it, if a Yellow grade demon palace and a Heaven grade demon palace were to fight, the Yellow grade demon palace would only be able to unleash a few attacks. After a few moments of fighting, the demon palace in his body would be exhausted. The other party would still have an abundance of demonic power. The result of the battle could be imagined. Moreover, the quality of a demon manor was related to one's potential. The higher the grade of the demon manor, the greater the potential and the higher the height it could reach in the future. Fortunately, I managed to wait for the bloodline inheritance. Otherwise, I would be at a disadvantage in opening a demon manor. Sakra shuttled back and forth in the mountain forest as he pondered in his mind. Opening a demon manor was definitely not something that could be done just by talking about it. First of all, there was great danger in opening it. Not everyone could succeed. The success rate was only 50 to 50. Those who could open a demon manor were naturally the lucky ones. They could transform into a demonic beast and truly embark on the path of demonic cultivation. Those who did not succeed would perish on the spot. Generally, those who did not know the method were like the Rat King. They prepared to find a demon of the same level as themselves and devour its flesh and blood. Relying on the power contained in the flesh and blood, they would naturally break through to the demonic beast realm. They would let the power erupt in their body and wreak havoc. In the end, they would evolve a demon manor. If they could not withstand the raging power, what awaited them would naturally be the death of their will. The demon mansions opened by these kinds of demonic beasts would not be too high in grade. Most of them would be at the Yellow grade. Only a few true demonic beasts would be able to obtain a mysterious grade demon manor. Finally, if an Earth grade demon did not know the method, unless the other party was an illegitimate child of God. Otherwise, even if a demon exploded, it would be useless. Therefore, such demons often had limited achievements, and in order to open up a good demon abode, a special method was needed. Coincidentally, Di Shirtian had obtained this information from his bloodline inheritance. Although Di Shirtian didn't run at full speed, his speed was still quite fast. It didn't take long for him to return to the cave residence. Inside the cave, Chihua, Baiyu, and the others were waiting for him. He looked up at Chihua and the others, then his eyes fell on Yuan Tian. He said, "Yuan Tian, you want to brew monkey wine. I have already opened up a place for you to brew it. I wonder if you have gathered all the ingredients." The monkey spirit wine was very important, so he had no choice but to pay attention to it. That was related to the speed of one's cultivation. When Yuan Tian heard this, his eyes flashed. He scratched his head and said, "King, there are still some fruits and flowers that we can't find in the myriad demon valley. We have to go outside to find them." Although they had only been in the valley for a short few days, Yuan Tian had already sent all of his clansmen out to search for all kinds of needed materials. Therefore, the valley was very rich in species. However, there were some fruits and materials that could not be found in the valley. Yes. When Di Shirtian heard this, the light in his eyes focused. He said, "The search for materials cannot be delayed. Yuan Tian, you will leave the valley with Chihua and Susu in a moment and lead the clansmen to search. But remember, as long as you find enough materials, don't stay outside for too long. Although we defeated the Rat King last time, we are not familiar with the southern barbaric mountain range. After you leave, don't go too far from the valley. Also, I will be going into seclusion soon. During my seclusion, I will seal this cave and no one is allowed to approach. Unless I come out of seclusion myself, you must not come in and disturb me unless there is a matter of life and death." Sakra's words naturally revealed a kind of pressure. This kind of pressure was invisible, but when it fell on Chihua and the others, it was as if a mountain was pressing down on them. They couldn't breathe and their heads drooped down one after another. Unknowingly, the imposing manner that he had in his previous life, when he had dominated the business world and rebuked Feng Qiu, had returned to him. His words and deeds naturally carried a kind of great pressure. "Yes, King." When Chihua and the others heard this, their eyes flashed with surprise. They understood that when Di Shirtian said that he was going into seclusion, it meant that he must be seeking a breakthrough. When he came out again, he would be stronger. "King, please rest assured. When you are in seclusion, I will guard the cave day and night. I will not let anything disturb you." Baiyu's temperament was inclined towards arrogance, but he was loyal and devoted to Di Shirtian. He decided on the spot to guard the cave for him. Di Shirtian nodded in his heart but said, "No need. In a while, I will seal the cave entrance with a stone door. Unless I personally open it, no one will be able to enter. While I am in seclusion, all of you must not slack off and cultivate diligently." The demonic power in his meridians was completely filled. If he continued to cultivate, there wouldn't be any progress. Only by opening the spirit dwelling and causing the demonic power to undergo a qualitative transformation could he continue to cultivate. Opening the spirit dwelling in seclusion was something that must be done. If he delayed, it wouldn't do him any good. Besides, he had a cultivation method, knew how to open the spirit dwelling, and had demonic power in his body. Moreover, he had already cultivated to the peak of the third layer. All of this, all of the various preparations, had made his body perfect. If he didn't open the spirit dwelling now, when would he be able to open it? After reminding Chihua and the others, Di Shirtian thought for a while and took out 10 bamboo jars filled with monkey wine from his storage pouch. Before they started cultivating, they were to drink a mouthful each time. This way, when circulating their demonic power, they would be able to fully absorb the power contained in the wine and achieve the effect of increasing their demonic power. Rumble! Di Shirtian used his demonic power to melt the rocks into a huge stone door. After Chihua and the others left, he sealed the entrance of the cave, leaving only a breathing hole. To open the spirit dwelling, we must first determine the exact location of the spirit dwelling. This was a very important point. Once the spirit dwelling was opened, it was equivalent to a cultivator's purple palace. If it was damaged, the cultivator would also be greatly injured. If the spirit dwelling was destroyed, to put it bluntly, it would be equivalent to losing all of one's cultivation. Of course, the higher the grade of the spirit dwelling, the stronger its defensive power. It wasn't that easy to destroy. Moreover, the spirit dwelling would also grow along with one's cultivation. The most miraculous thing was that no matter where the spirit dwelling was opened, it would continuously grow stronger along with the birth of the spirit dwelling. For example, when Baiyu opened the spirit dwelling in his abdomen would be nourished by his demonic power and become stronger than other parts of his body. As for where to open up the demon manor, Sakura had already made preparations long ago. The heart. The place he chose was the heart. The heart was the source of life. It was the place where the blood and chi in the body gathered. It was obvious how important it was to living beings. Without the heart, no matter how high one's cultivation was, they wouldn't be able to survive. This time, he chose to open the spirit dwelling in the heart and combine it with the heart. This way, under the nourishment of demonic power, the heart would definitely become stronger. What did a strong heart represent? It represented a strong life force. It meant that under the same injury, others would die, but he wouldn't. Moreover, the heart was the place where the blood and chi in the body gathered. It was the source of blood and chi. Opening the spirit dwelling here would greatly benefit the grade of the spirit dwelling. Who knows, he might be able to open a high-grade spirit dwelling. Huff! After making the decision, Di Shurtian didn't hesitate. He closed his eyes and silently circulated the tiger roar technique in his body. When his demonic power was completely restored and he was at peak condition, he began to move. First, he carefully guided a small amount of demonic power to the position of the heart. Slowly, the demonic power seeped into the heart. Like a gentle breeze, it slowly nourished the fragile heart. This demonic power wasn't simply nourished and then left. Instead, it was truly integrated into the heart bit by bit. The demonic power stimulated the heart, causing it to continuously become stronger. Every time a strand of demonic power was integrated into the heart, one could feel the heartbeat become stronger. Streams of blood gushed out from the heart and flowed to every part of the body. Faintly, as the heart grew stronger, even the power contained in the blood had a different level of enhancement. Every inch of the flesh felt like it was flowing with power. According to the normal method of opening the spirit dwelling, it wasn't a short process. Instead, it was a long process. The first step was to nourish the heart and continuously integrate the demonic power in the body into the heart, causing the heart to become stronger and stronger. Only when the heart was strong could it support the terrifying power that would erupt when opening the spirit dwelling. It was unlikely that his heart would be destroyed before he could open up the demon palace in the midst of such a huge amount of demonic energy. Therefore, before opening the spirit dwelling, the heart had to be nourished to the point where it could withstand the violent demonic power. This step was the most crucial. It could be said to be an important factor in success or failure. Di Shurtian attached great importance to this step. As he operated his cultivation method, he also integrated the demonic power with the heart. Outside his body, a cloud of dense black chi completely enveloped his body. The abundant spiritual chi of heaven and earth also followed the circulation of his cultivation method and agitated to form a spiritual chi vortex above his head. Spiritual chi quickly poured into his body. Outside the cave, although Di Shurtian had already said that there was no need to guard, Baiyu was still standing guard outside the cave. His body was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. He was also absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the surroundings and converting it into demonic power. However, his 2 ears were erect and would occasionally tremble. Obviously, he was still observing the surroundings. The second watch will be a little late. You can watch it tomorrow. Recommended friends work. Invincible Iron Knight. What was invincible? The protagonist pointed a finger to the sky, stomped his feet on the ground, looked up to the sky and shouted that he was the only one in the world. This was true invincibility. Chapter 70. Yuan Tian, Chi Hua, and the others led a group of clansmen and left the myriad demon valley to search for the various materials they needed. According to Di Shirtian, no matter what kind of material it was, as long as it wasn't available in the valley, they would completely dig it up and transplant it into the valley. In this way, they could avoid the trouble of having to run out again in the future because of these materials. The vast southern barbaric mountain range was still as boundless as before. Under the cover of a faint mist, various animals and spirit beasts were either hunting or wandering in the mountain forest, following their previous habits. However, in the mountain range, there weren't only monsters and demon beasts. Inside, there were also many cultivators wandering in the mountain forest, either alone or in groups of 3 to 5. Most of these people were rogue cultivators who cultivated alone or cultivators from some small clans. Although the spirit chi in the southern barbaric mountain range couldn't compare to the various spirit mountains and spirit veins in the cultivation world, the spirit chi that pervaded the air was many times stronger than in the secular world. Cultivating and advancing here was far faster than in other places. What did they do in the southern barbaric mountain range? Cultivating, looking for the essence of heaven and earth, capturing spirit beasts, killing monsters, and so on. These were the things they did most often. It was also because Di Shirtian and the others were lucky earlier that they unexpectedly didn't encounter these cultivators along the way and safely arrived at the Myriad Demon Valley. Otherwise, it would probably be a different scene now. Let's not talk about the southern barbaric mountain for now. At this time, in the southern part of the Chu country, there was an ancient city called Lingnan City. This ancient city was different from other cities and towns. There weren't any armored soldiers guarding the city walls, but there were several young men wearing blue clothes standing on top of the city walls. They looked all around. In front of the city gate, there were people wearing the same clothes standing. Every person who passed through the city gate would take out a small token for them to check before they could pass through and enter the city. If one looked carefully, they would discover that these people who entered the city weren't just ordinary people. Moreover, there was a large number of people who were arrogant. When they saw ordinary people, they revealed contemptuous gazes as if they were superior. There were old and young, men and women, and every one of them had a temperament that was completely different from that of ordinary people. This was an ancient city where cultivators gathered. The city was built by the Li family, a first-rate immortal cultivator family. It was the same Li family that Li Jiangqing, who was killed by Di Shirtian, belonged to. Southridge City belonged to the Li family. The ones patrolling the city were also disciples of the Li family. For immortal cultivation families, as long as they were promoted to a first-rate family, they would build an immortal cultivation city. This city was not only for ordinary people to live in, but more importantly, it was a gathering place for immortal cultivators and rogue cultivators. Here, they could trade various immortal treasures and elixirs. It could be said that in this immortal cultivation city, the businesses were not for ordinary people, but for immortal cultivators. Instead of money, they used spirit stones to trade. They were all precious treasures. For a first-rate aristocratic family to establish a cultivation city like this, they naturally needed to obtain benefits. Were the benefits big? Big and not just big. For example, the Li family's own business in the city was a source of income and wealth. In addition, everyone in the city, regardless of whether they opened a shop or set up a stall, had to pay a certain amount of fees every once in a while. The spirit stones obtained from this were completely visible benefit. Just based on this, it was possible for an aristocratic family to not lack spirit stones used for cultivation. Moreover, they could also gather a large amount of treasures and increase the family's foundation. Therefore, generally speaking, after becoming a first-rate aristocratic family, the first thing these aristocratic families did was to build a cultivation city that belonged to them. This city was the true foundation that ensured that an aristocratic family could continue to exist. Have you heard? The Lee family's family treasure, the psychic compass, has already been lost. Moreover, it was taken away by a black tiger. Not only that, I also heard that the Lee family's young master died under the black tiger's jaws. In my opinion, that black tiger might be a powerful demonic beast. Otherwise, how could it be so powerful and have intelligence that is on par with humans? Yeah, according to the rumors, that black tiger might be in the vicinity of the southern barbaric mountain range. Perhaps it came from the southern barbaric mountain range. In Lingnan City, for some unknown reason, some rumors spread without the slightest warning. Moreover, the contents of the rumors were precisely related to some of the things that happened in the Tiger Hill mountain range. The psychic compass. This was a rare treasure that could only be encountered by chance in the cultivation world. Obtaining it meant that when one wanted to search for treasures, it would become very easy. Having it meant that one could have the opportunity to obtain all kinds of treasures, spiritual essences of heaven and earth, and precious materials. These would no longer be difficult. This was the charm of the psychic compass. In the past, this compass was in the hands of the Lee family. The Lee family had a core formation expert guarding it. In the secular world, there was no one who dared to ignore a core formation expert and spy on this rare treasure. However, it was different now. The psychic compass had already been lost from the Lee family. Moreover, it had fallen into the hands of a demonic beast. Strictly speaking, it could no longer be considered a treasure of the Lee family. It could be said that it was an ownerless treasure that anyone could snatch. Moreover, it was perfectly justifiable. As soon as the rumors started, it caused an unusual storm in Lingnan City. In almost a short period of time, many cultivators bought all kinds of items and hurriedly left. Coincidentally, the majority of these people who left just happened to be heading towards the southern barbaric mountain range. Bang! In the lobby of a manor in the city, a table made of fine red sandalwood was smashed to pieces on the spot. Just what is going on? How did the news of our Lee family losing the psychic compass spread to the entire city? Also, the rumors say that the black tiger stole the compass. Why are the people who spread the rumors so sure? In the hall, a middle-aged man with a cold expression was raging with anger. He wanted to spit it out from his eyes. This person was the patriarch of the Lee family, Li Ji. This person could be said to have great ambitions. He always hoped that one day, he could develop the Lee family into a superfamily like the Chu family, a family that could truly compete with those cultivation sections. Indeed, under his leadership, the Lee family was much more powerful than before. It was a pity that his only son had died in the hands of Di Shirtian. However, if his son died, he could have another. Between his son and his family, he would obviously choose his family. For his family, he could sacrifice everything. However, what made his heart ache the most was that the Lee family's treasure, the psychic compass, was lost in the mountain range. This was definitely a big matter for the Lee family. Back then, the Lee family relied on the psychic compass to develop to its current scale. It could be said that the psychic compass's role was indispensable. If it was really lost, it would be a huge blow to the Lee family. Therefore, when he knew that the compass was lost, Li Ji's first thought was not grief over his son's death, but hatred. He hated Li Xiangqin for losing the compass. When he received the news, he immediately sent people to Tiger Hill to search for traces of Di Shirtian. Unfortunately, at that time Di Shirtian had already moved out. Not only did they not find the compass, they did not even find any traces of him. After searching for a long time, he reluctantly returned to the family. Now that the news of the compass had appeared again, although it was too coincidental, strange, and sudden, the psychic compass was extremely important to the Li family. Regardless of whether the news was true or false, they could not ignore it. What really made him angry was that the loss of the compass in the family was no longer a secret. Everyone in the city knew about it. It was impossible to prohibit or even take action against it. Now, the matter had become completely complicated. Big Brother, no matter what, we cannot ignore who spread the rumors and what their motives are. The psychic compass is our Li family's treasure, and Black Tiger is the murderer of Xiangqin. No matter what, we have to send people over. We cannot allow those itinerant cultivators to act recklessly. Li Ji was not the only one in the hall. There was also a middle-aged man standing there. It was his biological younger brother, Li Wan. Second brother, you are right. The most important thing now is to find the psychic compass. In another 3 years, the Sky Fae mystic realm will open again. Without the compass to guide us, it will be very difficult for our family to find those precious treasures. We can't seize the opportunity. The Mystery Land opens once every 1,000 years. In 3 years, it will be the only chance for our Li family to be promoted to a top family. No matter what, we have to get the compass back. At all cost. Li Ji's expression was unusually firm as he said fiercely, Brother Wan, now that the news has spread, it's too late to ban it. So far, many itinerant cultivators have begun to rush to the southern wilderness. This time, the task of finding the compass will be handed over to you. Later, immediately mobilize the experts in the family and set off. You must bring the compass back. You don't have to worry about other things. Yes, Big Brother. This time, I will definitely bring the compass back safe and sound. Li Wan's eyes were unusually firm. Obviously, he had made up his mind. Li Ji nodded heavily and said, I will investigate the rumors. I will leave the rest to you. Not to mention that the Li family had begun to prepare for departure because of the compass. However, the rumors had spread too widely. Not only in Lingnan City, but also in some other immortal cultivation cities, the same rumors had also appeared. The temptation of the psychic compass was extraordinarily great for itinerant cultivators. Many itinerant cultivators who wanted to try their luck rushed to the southern wilderness. For a time, the southern wilderness seemed to have become the center of the storm. At this time, Di Shirtian did not know at all. He was in seclusion in the cave, constantly nourishing and strengthening his heart with demonic power. Chapter 71. This kind of nourishment was not normal. Every time the demonic energy fused with the heart, it meant that the heart would become stronger, but the demonic energy in the body would completely disappear. Therefore, while the heart was being nourished, the demonic energy in Di Shirtian's body was constantly decreasing. Fortunately, at the same time, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was also flowing into his body through his meridians and countless pores. Following the circulation of his cultivation method, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was converted into demonic energy. This caused the demonic energy to increase with every passing moment. Unfortunately, the increase in demonic energy could not be compared to the consumption of demonic energy. As time passed, the demonic energy gradually decreased. The demonic energy that originally filled every inch of his meridians decreased under this situation, causing his strength to slowly fall from the peak of the third layer. However, Di Shirtian did not feel the slightest bit of heartache about this. This demonic energy was not going to disappear for nothing. It was used to strengthen the heart, and the heart was where the demon abode was located. The stronger it was, the more useful it would be when the demon abode was opened. It would be able to withstand the explosive power when the time came. Therefore, the more demonic energy his heart could absorb, the happier he would be. He was not afraid that it could fuse demonic energy, but he was afraid that it could not. After all, every part of the body had its limit. The heart had its limits as well. When it was strengthened to a certain extent, to its current limit, it would no longer be able to fuse demonic energy. At that time, it would be the time to open the demon abode. I can't let my demonic energy reach its peak state. Without peak strength, when opening the demon abode, it will definitely not be enough. After Tirtian felt that the spiritual chi of heaven and earth from the outside could not balance out the consumption of demonic energy, he secretly pondered in his heart. Refining the heart was one thing, but if his demonic energy did not reach its peak, when the time came to open the demon abode, when his demonic energy suddenly ran out at the crucial moment, the result would be a failure in opening the demon abode, or the demon abode's grade would be low. With this thought in mind, he did not continue refining the heart. Instead, he temporarily stopped, opened his storage bag, and took out the essence-gathering pills and the bamboo tube filled with spirit wine. He poured out 10 spirit-gathering pills from the jade bottle. When he looked at the bottle again, there weren't many left, only about 20 to 30 pills. The tiger stared at the spirit-gathering pills for a while before its gaze became firm. It opened its mouth and inhaled, swallowing all 10 spirit-gathering pills at the same time. At the same time, it opened the bamboo tube and drank all of the spirit wine inside in one go. After doing all that, he didn't stop there. After thinking for a moment, he opened his storage pouch, following which, a faint layer of jade light appeared in the cave. Along with the light, a huge jade embryo appeared in front of Sakura. The jade embryo was at least 8 feet long. After taking it out, he directly placed it under his body and lay down on top of the jade embryo. The jade embryo was too miraculous. Moreover, there was a mysterious connection between them. A thought flashed through his mind. If the jade embryo was by his side, would it be able to lend a hand when he was establishing the demon abode? Only then did he take it out. Lying on top of the jade embryo, his 2 tiger eyes slowly closed. Within his body, the power of the spirit-gathering pills and the monkey spirit wine completely exploded. Waves of heat continuously surged out from his body. Wave after wave, it was like an angry sea, constantly rushing to every part of his body. Humph! If it was in the past, I might not be able to control such a large amount of medicinal power and explode to death. But now I'm at the peak of a demon, and my physical body is getting stronger every day. You guys better behave yourselves in my body. Seal. Tirtian felt the enormous power of the spirit-gathering pills and spirit wine explode at the same time. His heart tightened, but he did not panic because of this. Very calmly, he controlled his demon chi, weaving it from all directions into a huge and dense net, directly trapping this sudden explosion of power. Boom, boom, boom! The medicinal power was abnormally violent, roaring as it unceasingly attacked the net of demon chi, wanting to break the net's shackles. However, at this moment, the demon chi within Tirtian's body was already extremely condensed. Moreover, under his control, there was an endless stream of demon chi supporting him from behind. The demon chi net was extremely tough, and no matter how strong the impact was, it was unable to break the net. Instead, the demon chi net quickly contracted, sealing that enormous power in one fell swoop within his abdomen. Only a small opening was left to slowly release the sealed power to control the quantity of the demonic chi. It was just enough to allow the medicinal power that emerged to be equal to the demon chi he used to temper his heart. In this way, in addition to absorbing the spirit chi of heaven and earth from the outside, he could still maintain his demon chi at its peak state during tempering. For a moment, the cave was incomparably silent. The dense black fog completely covered the entire surrounding area. Above the demon fog, there was a spirit chi vortex, and below him, there was a sparkling jade light. Time slowly passed by in this silence. Tempering the heart was a long process. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, the southern barbaric mountain range could be considered to have become completely bustling. When the news of the Li clan's psychic compass being lost spread out, it immediately caused many loose cultivators or small clans to rush towards the southern barbaric mountain range together. In the beginning, these loose cultivators didn't directly enter the mountain range, and only searched in the areas outside the mountain range. After all, the rumors only said that the compass was on a spirit beast. The first place where the compass was lost was in the Tiger Hill mountain range. Therefore, the smart ones all followed the route from Tiger Hill to the southern barbaric mountain range, searching for that legendary spirit beast. If the loose cultivators gathered together, their numbers would also be a rather large group. After searching together and not finding anything, they finally confirmed that their target was in the southern barbaric mountain range. However, confirmation was confirmation. There really weren't many who truly dared to enter the mountain range. The southern barbaric mountain range wasn't an ordinary mountain range. There were layers of dangers inside, such as miasma, swamps, various monsters, and poisonous creatures. All of these were existences that could pose an enormous threat to cultivators. Moreover, there were even demon beasts within the mountain range. Demon beasts were existences that already possessed intelligence close to that of ordinary people. Every single one of them was equivalent to a foundation establishment cultivator, and when they went berserk, they could pose a certain threat to core formation cultivators. Currently, most of the people that came were loose cultivators. Those that were able to reach foundation establishment were practically as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Most of them were hovering around the Qi condensation stage, and the profound ones were only at the late stage of the Qi condensation stage. The ordinary ones were only at the 3rd or 4th level of the Qi condensation stage, and only at the 6th or 7th level of the Qi condensation stage. With this kind of cultivation, the southern barbaric mountain range was undoubtedly an extremely dangerous area for them. As time passed, more and more people gathered. Although the mountain range was dangerous, entering was absolutely a matter of necessity. Senior Marshal Brother Zhong, if you want me to agree to your marriage and become your dual companion, then you must help me capture that black tiger I want as a betrothal gift. Otherwise, we can only be fated to be together. On a mountain peak near the southern barbaric mountain range, a young man with a slender figure, snow-white clothes, and a strange ancient sword on his back silently stood at the peak of the mountain. His entire being was handsome to the point of being devilish, as if he was about to fly with the wind, and he was as light as an immortal. Shockingly, beside him was a peerlessly beautiful young woman in a blue palace dress. This young woman was extremely familiar. She was none other than the little princess of the Chu kingdom, Chu Yun. The young man was Zhong Yunfei. One of them was extraordinarily handsome, while the other had a peerlessly beautiful appearance. When they stood together, they were truly like an immortal couple. However, their expressions obviously weren't. Chu Yun was quick-witted and eccentric, and her entire body was filled with crafty ideas. As she spoke, traces of a crafty light occasionally flashed within her eyes as she spoke to Zhong Yunfei. When Zhong Yunfei heard this, he turned his head to look at Chu Yun, and his eyes revealed a trace of tenderness. Junior Sister Yun, even though the marriage between us was decided by my master and Uncle Chu, I, Zhong Yunfei, won't force you. If you want the black tiger as a betrothal gift, I'll agree to it as well. I, Zhong Yunfei, have always kept my promises, and I'll definitely do what I've promised. If I'm unable to do it, then I'll never mention marriage again in my entire life. Every single word of Zhong Yunfei carried a firm aura, and coupled with the righteous aura he emitted, it caused others to firmly believe what he said without the slightest doubt. There really was a story behind why they'd come here. The reason was that Zhong Yunfei's master had once saved Chu Tianqing's life. The relationship between them was extremely deep, and every once in a while they'd exchange letters. And this time, Zhong Yunfei had left the mountain to go to the Chu clan, and he even had a letter with him. What was written in the letter, Zhong Yunfei didn't know at first, and only when he arrived at the Chu clan did he find out that his master was actually proposing marriage for him. He wanted to matchmake him and Chu Yun's marriage so that the two of them could become Dao companions. Chu Tianxing had also seen Zhong Yunfei with his own eyes, so he had some understanding of his aptitude and reputation. He was a person who could achieve great things and had the opportunity to pry into profound realms. Coupled with the fact that Chu Tianxing had saved his life back then, he made the decision on the spot and agreed. But even though he agreed, Chu Yun wasn't willing to agree so easily. She said that her Dao companion had to be a dragon among men, and he had to be able to fulfill one of her requests. Obviously, her request was none other than for Zhong Yunfei to capture the black tiger she'd seen before and give it to her as a betrothal gift. Only then could she agree. Moreover, during this process she couldn't borrow the strength of others. She had to personally capture it for it to count. Thus, the two of them rushed to the southern barbaric mountain range. Plop, plop. In the cave in the myriad demon valley, the sound of a strong and powerful heartbeat broke the silence in the cave. A rhythmic sound rang out. Good, I've finally completed the first step. Di Shirtian let out a long breath in his heart. In his body, his heart rose and fell rhythmically. Every time it rose and fell, it made a beating sound that was so strong that it directly passed through his body and spread outside. Demonic power could no longer be fused into his heart. The strength of his heart had already reached the limit that it could reach now. It had been tempered to an extremely powerful state. This also meant that the first step of establishing the demon residence had been completely completed. He's about to establish the demon residence. What will happen during the establishment of the demon residence? Brothers, hurry up and throw your vote. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.